A bloody Christmas Eve. A girl is thrown to her death in a blizzard. The Mafia boss finds her under an awning, her chest still beating. He will kill the one who did this, but first he must save her, and when she opens her eyes to him for the first time, he knows that everything has changed forever. Hello, everyone. This is a story of courage, betrayal, and love in the underworld. Watch until the end, like and comment where you're watching from so I know how far this story has come. Now, let's begin. The wind screamed like something dying. Elena Vale pressed her forehead against the frosted window of the third-floor library and watched the blizzard devour Manhattan. Snow fell so thick she couldn't see the iron gates at the end of the driveway anymore. Just white. Just wind. Just the kind of storm that killed people stupid enough to be caught outside. She was supposed to be decorating. Christmas Eve at the Moretti estate meant every banister needed garland, every doorway needed ribbon, every surface needed to gleam like new money. The house manager had made that clear 3 hours ago when he'd shoved the box of ornaments into her arms and told her to make the grand staircase look like something out of a magazine. Victor Hale didn't ask. He ordered. And if you were 19 years old with a high school diploma and no family to fall back on, you did what Victor Hale told you to do. Elena tugged her sleeves down over her knuckles and turned away from the window. The library was colder than it should have been. Everything in this house was colder than it should have been. Marble floors, vaulted ceilings, furniture that looked expensive enough to pay off her student loans twice over. The Moretti mansion wasn't a home. It was a monument, and she was just another piece of the staff keeping it polished. She grabbed the box of crystal ornaments and headed for the staircase. The grand foyer stretched out below her like something from a movie. Chandeliers the size of cars. A staircase wide enough to drive a truck up. The kind of space that made you feel small just standing in it. Elena had been working here for 6 months, and she still wasn't used to it. Every time she walked through the front doors, she felt like an imposter. Like someone was going to figure out she didn't belong and throw her back onto the street where she came from. She set the box down on the third step and started unwrapping the garland. Her fingers were clumsy from the cold. The estate's heating system was top of the line, but Victor kept it low in the staff areas. Said it built character. Elena thought it mostly just built resentment, but she kept that opinion to herself. Footsteps echoed from the hallway above. She glanced up and saw Victor descending toward her. 40-something, graying at the temples, with the kind of face that looked like it had forgotten how to smile sometime in the 90s. He wore a 3-piece suit even though it was almost midnight. Victor Hale was the kind of man who thought presentation equaled power. "You're behind schedule," he said. Elena kept her eyes on the garland. "I'm working on it. Mr. Moretti will be home within the hour. This needs to be finished." "It will be." Victor stopped 2 steps above her, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Expensive, suffocating. He leaned down and inspected the garland she'd just hung. His mouth tightened. "This is crooked. It's not... Don't argue with me." His voice dropped lower, colder. "Fix it." Elena's jaw clenched, but she reached up and adjusted the garland. It looked exactly the same as before. Victor nodded like she'd just corrected some catastrophic error and continued down the stairs without another word. She waited until his footsteps faded before she let out a breath. 6 months. She'd been dealing with Victor Hale's bullshit for 6 months. The other staff members said he'd been worse since Mr. Moretti promoted someone else to head of security last year. Said Victor had expected the position and took it personally when it went to someone younger. Now he spent his days micromanaging the household and making everyone miserable in the process. Elena pulled another ornament from the box. This one was heavier than the others. Older. The glass was hand-blown, swirled with gold leaf, probably worth more than she made in a month. She held it carefully and reached for the lowest branch of the massive Christmas tree positioned at the base of the stairs. Her foot slipped. Just a half inch. Just enough. The ornament tumbled from her fingers and hit the marble floor with a sound like a gunshot. Elena's heart stopped. She stared down at the shattered glass spreading across the white stone like a pool of liquid gold. Her brain screamed at her to move, to clean it up, to fix this before anyone saw. But her body wouldn't respond. She just stood there, frozen, watching the pieces glitter under the chandelier light. "What the hell did you just do?" Victor's voice came from behind her. She spun around and saw him standing in the doorway to the west wing, his face twisted into something ugly. "It was an accident," Elena said. Her voice came out smaller than she wanted. I slipped. I'll clean it up right now. Do you have any idea what that was worth? Victor crossed the foyer in 4 long strides. He grabbed her wrist and yanked her toward the shattered ornament. Look at it. Look at what you've done. Elena tried to pull away, but his grip tightened. I said it was an accident. Yeah. God. That vase belonged to Mr. Moretti's grandmother. It's been in his family for 3 generations. Victor's face was inches from hers now. She could see the veins standing out on his forehead. You just destroyed an irreplaceable family heirloom because you're clumsy and careless. It's an ornament, Elena shot back. It's not. The slap came so fast she didn't see it coming. Her head snapped to the side and pain exploded across her cheek. She stumbled backward and caught herself on the banister, her ears ringing. Victor was breathing hard. His hand was still raised. For a second, Elena thought he might hit her again. Instead, he lowered his arm and straightened his suit jacket. You're done, he said quietly. Get out. Elena's cheek throbbed. She pressed her palm against it and felt heat radiating from the skin. You can't fire me. Only Mr. Moretti can. I don't care what Mr. Moretti says. You're leaving, now. Victor grabbed her arm and dragged her toward the front entrance. Elena tried to dig her heels in, but the marble was too slick. She slid across the floor like a rag doll. Wait, she said. Wait, please. I need this job. I can pay for the ornament. I can. Victor wasn't listening. He shoved her toward the coat closet near the entrance and pulled out her thin uniform jacket, the one she wore on her walk from the bus stop to the estate. It wasn't designed for a blizzard. It wasn't designed for anything below 40 degrees. Put it on, Victor ordered. Are you insane? Elena stared at him. There's a blizzard outside. I'll freeze to death before I make it to the main road. Should have thought about that before you broke Mr. Moretti's property. Victor thrust the jacket at her. When she didn't take it, he dropped it on the floor. Put it on or I'll throw you out without it. Elena's hands were shaking, not from the cold, from rage, from fear, from the sudden realization that Victor Hale wasn't just angry. He was enjoying this. She bent down and picked up the jacket. It felt like tissue paper in her hands. She pulled it on, and the wind immediately found every gap in the fabric. The front door was still closed, and she was already freezing. Victor grabbed her arm again and hauled her toward the entrance. Elena's boot scraped against the marble as she tried to resist, but it was useless. He was stronger, and he had momentum, and he wanted her gone. Please, Elena said, her voice cracked. Please don't do this. Victor pulled open the door. The blizzard roared into the foyer like a living thing. Snow whipped across the marble, and the temperature dropped 20 degrees in an instant. Elena could see maybe 5 feet into the storm before everything dissolved into white chaos. Get out, Victor said. I'll die out there. Then I guess you should have been more careful. He shoved her through the doorway. Elena stumbled down the front steps and into the snow. The cold hit her like a fist. The wind tore the breath from her lungs. She spun around and saw Victor standing in the doorway, silhouetted by the warm light from inside. Wait, she screamed. Wait, please. He slammed the door. The sound of the lock sliding into place was the loudest thing Elena had ever heard. She stood there for maybe 10 seconds before her brain caught up with what had just happened. Then she ran. Not toward the road. She'd never make it to the main gates in this storm. Instead, she ran toward the side of the house, looking for some kind of shelter. A maintenance shed, a garage, anything with a roof and walls. The snow was already 6 inches deep. Every step felt like wading through cement. The wind screamed in her ears and threw ice into her face hard enough to sting. She couldn't feel her fingers anymore. Her face was numb. The thin jacket did exactly nothing. Elena made it maybe 50 yards before her legs gave out. She collapsed against something solid. A tree. Pine branches hung low over her head, creating a small pocket of space where the snow wasn't quite as thick. She pressed her back against the trunk and tried to catch her breath. This was bad. This was really bad. She needed to get warm. She needed to get inside. But the house was locked and she didn't have her phone, and the nearest neighbor was half a mile away through a blizzard that was only getting worse. Elena pulled her knees up to her chest and wrapped her arms around them. Her whole body was shaking now. Hard, violent tremors that she couldn't control. Her teeth chattered so hard she bit her tongue and tasted blood. She was going to die out here. The thought arrived with crystal clarity. No drama, no panic, just a simple statement of fact. Victor Hale had thrown her into a blizzard, and she was going to freeze to death under a pine tree while he stood inside the warm mansion and congratulated himself on maintaining discipline. Elena closed her eyes. Maybe if she just rested for a minute. Maybe if she just stopped shaking for a second, she could figure out what to do next. The cold pulled her down like an anchor key. Damien Moretti saw the blood on the snow before he saw the girl. His headlights cut through the blizzard and caught something dark staining the white ground near the old pine at the edge of the property. He hit the brakes, and the SUV fishtailed to a stop 20 feet from the tree. "Stay here," he told Marco. His driver started to protest, but Damien was already out of the vehicle. The cold hit him immediately, but he ignored it. He'd grown up in worse. He walked toward the tree with his coat collar turned up and his hands shoved in his pockets, squinting against the wind. The blood led him to her. She was curled up at the base of the pine with her arms wrapped around her knees and her face pressed against the bark. Her lips were blue. Her skin was white. She wasn't shaking anymore. That was bad. Damien knew enough about hypothermia to know that when the shaking stopped, you were running out of time. He knelt down beside her and pressed 2 fingers against her throat. Her pulse was there, but it was weak, thready. Her breathing was shallow. She was maybe 5 minutes from gone. Damien stood and turned back toward the SUV. Marco had gotten out and was walking toward him through the snow. "Call Dr. Chen," Damien said. "Tell him I'm bringing someone in. Hypothermia, possible frostbite. Have him ready." "Who is she?" "I don't know yet." Damien bent down and slid his arms under the girl's shoulders and knees. She was lighter than he expected. He straightened up and she made a small sound against his chest. Not quite conscious. Not quite gone. He carried her back to the SUV and climbed into the back seat with her still in his arms. Marco got behind the wheel and punched the accelerator. The vehicle lurched forward and carved a path through the snow toward the main house. Damien looked down at the girl in his lap. Her face was young, 19, maybe 20. Dark hair plastered to her forehead, a bruise blooming across her left cheek in the shape of someone's hand. His jaw tightened. "Marco," he said quietly, "when we get to the house, pull the security footage from the last 2 hours. Everything. I want to know how this girl ended up dying in my front yard." "Yes, sir." The SUV skidded to a stop in front of the main entrance. Damien kicked the door open and carried the girl up the steps. The front door swung inward before he reached it. One of the night staff stood there with his eyes wide. "Get Dr. Chen," Damien ordered. "Guest wing, now." He didn't wait for a response. He carried the girl through the foyer and up the grand staircase. The garland she'd been hanging was crooked. A box of ornaments sat abandoned on the 3rd step. Shattered glass glittered on the marble floor below. Damien's eyes narrowed, but he kept moving. The guest wing was warmer than the rest of the house. He shouldered open the door to the largest bedroom and laid the girl down on the bed. Her jacket was soaked through. Her clothes were stiff with ice. He pulled off the jacket and threw it on the floor, then grabbed the blankets from the foot of the bed and wrapped them around her. She still wasn't shaking. That was very bad. Dr. Chen arrived 3 minutes later with a medical bag and a grim expression. He took one look at the girl and started barking orders. Damien stepped back and let him work. The doctor cut away her wet clothes and replaced them with dry thermals from somewhere. He checked her pulse, her breathing, her pupils. He wrapped heat packs around her hands and feet and tucked more blankets around her. "Will she live?" Damien asked. "Maybe." Dr. Chen didn't look up from his work. "She's borderline. Another 10 minutes and I'd say no. As it is," he shook his head, "we'll see. I need to monitor her through the night. If her core temperature comes up and she doesn't develop complications, she'll probably make it." "Probably. It's the best I can give you right now." Dr. Chen finally looked at Damien. "What happened to her?" "That's what I'm about to find out." Damien turned and walked out of the room. Marco was waiting in the hallway with a tablet in his hands. "I pulled the footage," Marco said. "You need to see this." They walked to Damien's office on the 2nd floor. Marco set the tablet on the desk and pulled up a video file. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m., 23 minutes ago. Damien watched the security footage in silence. He watched the girl hanging garland on the staircase, watched her drop the ornament, watched Victor Hale grab her and drag her toward the front door, watched him throw her into the storm. The video ended. Damien set the tablet down very carefully. His hands were steady. His voice was calm when he spoke. "Where is Victor now?" "In his quarters," Marco said. "Third floor, west wing. Get him. Bring him to the main foyer. Wake the entire staff. I want everyone downstairs in 5 minutes." Marco hesitated. "Sir." 5 minutes, Marco." "Yes, sir." Marco left. Damien stayed in his office and stared at the frozen image on the tablet screen. The girl's face twisted in fear as Victor shoved her toward the door. The bruise on her cheek. The thin jacket that wouldn't save her. Something cold and familiar settled in Damien's chest. He recognized it. He'd felt it before, years ago, when he'd learned what loyalty meant in this world. When he'd learned that the people who worked for you were either assets or liabilities, and liabilities needed to be removed before they caused problems. Victor Hale had just become a liability. Damien stood and buttoned his suit jacket. Then he walked downstairs to handle it. Cut. The staff gathered in the foyer like sheep called to slaughter. They stood in a loose semicircle at the base of the grand staircase. 19 people in various states of sleepwear and confusion. The night crew. The skeleton staff that kept the mansion running while Damien was away on business. They were all afraid. Damien could see it in their faces. They'd heard the stories. They knew what happened when you disappointed Damien Moretti. Victor Hale stood at the front of the group with his arms crossed and his expression carefully neutral. He'd put on a fresh suit, combed his hair. He looked like a man who thought he was about to receive a commendation for maintaining order in the household. He was wrong. Damien descended the stairs slowly. He didn't rush, didn't speak, just walked down step by step while everyone watched. When he reached the bottom, he stopped in front of the shattered ornament and looked down at it. "Someone want to explain this?" he asked quietly. Victor stepped forward. "There was an incident earlier tonight, Mr. Moretti. One of the housekeeping staff was careless and broke a family heirloom. I took appropriate action and dismissed her immediately. I apologize that she left such a mess behind, but I assure you..." "Where is she now?" Victor blinked. "I'm sorry?" "The girl you dismissed." Damien looked up at him. "Where is she now?" "I sent her home. The weather was poor, but she insisted she could manage." "Don't lie to me." Victor's mouth closed. The foyer went very quiet. Damien pulled his phone from his pocket and held it up. The security footage played on the screen. No sound. Just Victor dragging the girl toward the door. Just Victor throwing her into the storm. Just Victor slamming the door and walking away. "I'll ask again," Damien said softly. "Where is she now?" Victor's face had gone pale. He glanced at the other staff members. They were all staring at him. No one moved to defend him. No one said a word. "Mr. Moretti," Victor said, "I can explain..." "Explain what? That you threw a 19-year-old girl into a blizzard because she broke an ornament?" Damien's voice was still quiet, still calm. That made it worse. "Explain that you struck her first, that you locked her out of the house in sub-zero temperatures with no phone and no transportation. She was careless. She destroyed your property. I was maintaining discipline. You were murdering her." The word hung in the air like smoke. Victor opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. That's not... I would never... "She's upstairs right now," Damien said. "In the guest wing. Dr. Chen says she might live." "Might?" "Because I found her collapsed under a tree on the edge of the property with a core temperature low enough to stop her heart." He took a step closer to Victor. "You did that. You threw her into a storm and walked away." Victor's composure was cracking. "I didn't know I thought she'd go to the road." "In a blizzard, with no coat. After you hit her..." Damien's voice dropped even lower. "Tell me something, Victor. How long have you worked for me?" 8 years, Mr. Moretti. 8 years. "And in those 8 years, have I ever given you the authority to discipline my staff with violence?" Victor said nothing. "Have I ever told you it was acceptable to throw people into blizzards when they made mistakes?" Victor's jaw clenched. "No, sir." "Then why did you think you could do it tonight?" The silence stretched out. No one in the foyer moved. They were all watching Victor now, waiting to see what he'd say, waiting to see if he'd dig himself deeper or try to crawl out. Victor chose poorly. "With respect, Mr. Moretti, you weren't here. Someone needed to maintain order. That girl has been a problem since the day she was hired. Lazy, disrespectful, always questioning my authority. Tonight was simply the final, get out. Victor stopped. What? Get out of my house. Damien's voice was flat. You're fired. You have 10 minutes to pack your things. Anything you leave behind will be burned. Marco will escort you to the gates. If you set foot on this property again, I'll have you arrested for trespassing. Are we clear? Victor's face went from pale to red. You can't. I've given 8 years to this household. I've been loyal. Ah, loyal. Damien laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. You just tried to kill someone because she broke an ornament that costs less than your monthly salary. That's not loyalty, Victor. That's sadism, and I don't employ sadists. This is about the security position, isn't it? Victor's voice rose. You've wanted me gone ever since you promoted Rodriguez instead of me. You've been looking for an excuse. I don't need an excuse. I own this house. I own everything in it, including your job. Damien stepped closer until they were almost nose to nose. But if you want an excuse, here it is. You're a small, cruel man who gets off on hurting people who can't fight back. You've been abusing my staff for months, and I let it slide because you were useful. But tonight you crossed a line. Tonight you nearly killed someone, so now you're done. Victor's hands were shaking. From rage or fear, Damien couldn't tell, didn't care. Marco, but Damien said without looking away from Victor. Escort Mr. Hale to his quarters. He has 10 minutes. Marco appeared at Victor's elbow. Victor jerked away from him. This is a mistake, Victor said. His voice was tight, controlled. You're making a mistake, Mr. Moretti. I know things. I know how this house operates. I know your security protocols. I know. Is that a threat? Victor's mouth snapped shut. Because it sounded like a threat, Damien continued. And threatening me in my own home is a very bad idea, Victor, especially tonight, especially after what you did. So I'm going to give you a choice. You can leave quietly in the next 10 minutes and we'll never see each other again. Or you can keep talking and I'll have Marco break both your legs before he throws you out into the same blizzard you threw that girl into. Which would you prefer? Victor stared at him. For a moment, Damien thought the man might actually be stupid enough to push it. Then Victor's shoulders sagged. 10 minutes, Marco said quietly. He touched Victor's elbow. This time, Victor didn't pull away. He just turned and walked toward the stairs with Marco behind him. Damien watched them go, then he turned to face the rest of the staff. Let me be clear, he said. What happened tonight was unacceptable. If any of you ever lay a hand on another staff member, if any of you ever endanger someone's life over property damage, you will be fired immediately and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. I don't care how long you've worked here. I don't care what the circumstances are. Violence is not tolerated in this house. Are we clear? 19 heads nodded in unison. Good. Clean up the glass. Finish the decorating. And someone bring coffee up to Dr. Chen in the guest wing. He's going to be there all night. The staff scattered. Within 30 seconds, the foyer was empty except for Damien and the shattered ornament on the floor. He knelt down and picked up one of the larger pieces. Gold leaf swirled through the glass like frozen smoke. It had been his grandmother's favorite. She'd brought it with her from Sicily 60 years ago. It was just an ornament. Damien set the piece down and stood. Then he climbed the stairs toward the guest wing, where a girl he'd never met was fighting to stay alive because one of his employees had decided she was disposable. He needed to make sure she survived. Not because it would look bad if she died. Not because it would create legal problems. But because the alternative, letting Victor Hale win, was unacceptable. Damien Moretti had built his empire on control. On knowing exactly what was happening in his world at all times. On making sure that people who worked for him understood the rules and followed them. Tonight, Victor had broken those rules, had acted without authority, had nearly killed someone for no reason other than petty cruelty. That couldn't stand. Damien reached the guest wing and found Dr. Chen sitting in a chair beside the bed, monitoring the girl's vitals on a portable machine. Her face was still too pale, but there was color coming back to her lips. Her chest rose and fell in a steady rhythm. How is she? Damien asked. Stable. Her temperature's coming up. Slowly, but it's moving in the right direction. Dr. Chen glanced at him. She got lucky. A few more minutes and we'd be having a different conversation. When will she wake up? Could be hours. Could be tomorrow. Her body needs time to recover. Damien nodded. He walked to the window and looked out at the storm. It was starting to ease. The wind wasn't screaming anymore. The snow was falling straight down instead of sideways. "I want security posted outside this room," he said. 24 hours. No one gets in except you and me." Dr. Chen frowned. "You think someone's going to try something?" "I think Victor Hale is angry and humiliated and probably drunk by now. I don't trust what he might do." Damien turned back to the doctor. "She stays here until I say otherwise. Understood?" "Understood." "Good." Damien walked to the door. He paused with his hand on the handle and looked back at the girl in the bed. She was curled on her side now, one hand tucked under her cheek. She looked impossibly young, impossibly fragile. "What's her name?" Damien asked. Dr. Chen checked his notes. "Elena Vale." "Elena." Damien tested the name silently. It felt right somehow, old-fashioned, strong. "Make sure she lives, Dr. Chen." "I'll do my best." Damien nodded and left. He walked back to his office and poured himself 3 fingers of scotch. Then he sat down at his desk and pulled up the security footage again. He watched it 5 times. Watched Elena hanging garland. Watched her drop the ornament. Watched the fear on her face when Victor grabbed her. Watched her beg him not to throw her outside. Watched Victor do it anyway. Damien finished his scotch and poured another. He'd built his reputation on being cold, on being untouchable, on making decisions based on logic and strategy, not emotion. But watching that video made something twist in his chest that felt uncomfortably close to rage. Victor Hale had worked in this house for 8 years, had been part of Damien's operation since before the organization was even fully formed. He knew the rules, he knew the protocols, he knew that violence against staff was grounds for immediate termination, and he'd done it anyway, because he thought he could get away with it, because he thought Damien wouldn't find out, because he thought one 19-year-old girl was disposable. Damien finished his second scotch and set the glass down. Victor Hale had made a mistake tonight, a big one, and now he was going to spend the rest of his life knowing that his career had ended because he couldn't control his temper over a broken ornament. It should have felt like justice. Instead, it felt incomplete. Damien stood and walked back to the guest wing. The security guard he'd posted was already in position outside the door. The man straightened when he saw Damien approaching. "No one in or out except Dr. Chen and me," Damien said. "If Victor Hale shows up, detain him and call me immediately." "Yes, sir." Damien went inside. Dr. Chen was still in his chair, still monitoring the machines. The girl, Elena, hadn't moved. "Any change?" Damien asked. "Her temperature's up another degree." "That's good. She's not out of danger yet, but she's heading in the right direction." Damien walked to the bed and looked down at Elena's face. The bruise on her cheek was darker now, purple spreading into yellow around the edges. It would be there for days, a reminder of what Victor had done. "When she wakes up," Damien said quietly, "I want to talk to her." "Of course. I need to know what happened, all of it, not just what I saw on the video." Dr. Chen was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "She's going to be scared. She's going to think she's in trouble." "Why would she think that?" "Because powerful men don't usually summon terrified girls to their private offices for friendly conversations." Dr. Chen met Damien's eyes. "Whatever you're planning to do with her, make sure it's the right thing. She's been through enough tonight." Damien's jaw tightened. "I'm not Victor Hale." "I know, but she doesn't." The words hung in the air between them. After a moment, Damien nodded. "I'll be gentle," he said. "See that you are." Damien left the room and went back to his office. The scotch bottle was still on his desk. He considered pouring a third glass, then decided against it. He needed to stay sharp, needed to think this through. Elena Vale had nearly died tonight because one of his employees had been cruel and petty and drunk on minor authority. That was a failure of oversight, a failure of management, a failure of the culture he'd built in this house. Damien didn't tolerate failure, especially not his own. He pulled up Elena's personnel file on his computer. 19 years old, high school diploma, no college. She'd been hired 6 months ago as part of the housekeeping staff. Her references were solid. Her work record was clean, no complaints, no disciplinary issues. Victor had called her lazy and disrespectful. The file said otherwise. Damien closed the file and leaned back in his chair. Outside the window, the storm was finally dying. The first hints of dawn were creeping over the horizon. Christmas morning, the day when normal families gathered around trees and opened presents and pretended the world wasn't a brutal, unforgiving place. Damien didn't do Christmas, hadn't in years. It reminded him too much of things he'd lost, people he'd lost, a version of himself that no longer existed. But maybe this year would be different. Maybe this year he'd save someone instead of destroying them. He stood and walked back to the guest wing one more time. The guard was still at his post. Dr. Chen was still in his chair, and Elena was still curled up in the bed, breathing softly, alive. Damien stood in the doorway and watched her for a long moment. Then he turned and walked back to his office to wait for her to wake up. Because when she did, he was going to make sure she understood something very important. She was safe now. Victor Hale was gone, and no one was ever going to hurt her in this house again. That was a promise. And Damien Moretti always kept his promises, even the ones that might destroy him. Elena woke up drowning. Her lungs burned, her chest seized. She gasped and choked and clawed at the blankets wrapped around her body like they were trying to pull her under. For 3 seconds she was back in the snow, back in the cold, back under the pine tree waiting to die. Then her vision cleared and she saw the ceiling. Not snow, not sky. Just a white plaster ceiling with crown molding and a chandelier that probably cost more than her car. She blinked, and the panic receded enough for her brain to start working again. She was in a bed, a massive bed with sheets that felt like silk against her skin. The room around her was warm and enormous and decorated like something from a hotel magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows, antique furniture, a fireplace with actual logs burning in it. Elena tried to sit up and her body screamed in protest. Every muscle felt like it had been beaten with a hammer. Her hands were wrapped in bandages, her feet throbbed, her face hurt. Easy. She jerked her head toward the voice and immediately regretted it. Pain spiked through her skull. A man was sitting in a chair beside the bed. Late 50s, graying hair, wire-rimmed glasses. He wore a cardigan and held a clipboard. "Doctor," her brain supplied. "This man is a doctor." "Where am I?" Her voice came out like gravel. "Guest wing of the Moretti estate. You've been unconscious for 14 hours. The doctor set down his clipboard and reached for a glass of water on the nightstand. "Drink this, slowly." Elena took the glass with shaking hands and sipped. The water hurt going down. Everything hurt. She drank anyway because her throat felt like sandpaper. "What happened?" she asked. "You nearly froze to death. Severe hypothermia, minor frostbite on your fingers and toes, mild concussion from where you hit your head on the tree. You're lucky to be alive." The doctor took the glass back when she finished. "Do you remember anything from last night?" Last night. Elena closed her eyes, and it all came rushing back. The ornament, Victor's hand across her face, the storm, the cold that felt like knives in her lungs. "Victor threw me out," she said quietly. "I broke something and he threw me into the blizzard." "I know." Mr. Moretti saw the security footage. Elena's eyes snapped open. "Mr. Moretti is here?" "He's the one who found you, carried you inside himself." The doctor stood and checked one of the machines beside the bed. "He wants to speak with you when you're feeling up to it." "I don't—" Elena's chest tightened. "I don't have a job anymore. Victor fired me. I should just go." "Victor Hale doesn't work here anymore." The doctor's voice was flat. "Mr. Moretti terminated him last night, had him escorted off the property within the hour." Elena stared at him. "What?" "You heard me. Victor's gone. Mr. Moretti made it very clear that what happened to you was unacceptable." The doctor met her eyes. "You're safe here. No one's going to hurt you. Understand?" Elena didn't understand. Didn't understand any of this. Men like Damien Moretti didn't fire their house managers over housekeeping staff. They didn't carry freezing girls inside and put them in guest rooms. They didn't care. "I need to talk to him," Elena said. "He's sleeping. He was up all night." The doctor moved toward the door. "I'll let him know you're awake. In the meantime, rest. Your body needs time to heal." "Wait!" Elena pushed herself up straighter and ignored the way her ribs protested. "How bad is it? The frostbite?" The doctor paused with his hand on the doorknob. "You'll keep all your fingers and toes. The tissue damage is minor. You'll have some numbness for a few weeks, but it should resolve on its own." He looked back at her. Like I said, you're lucky. Then he left. Elena sat in the enormous bed and tried to process what was happening. Victor was gone. She was in Damian Moretti's guest wing. She'd almost died and somehow survived, and now the most dangerous man in New York wanted to talk to her. This was bad. This was very bad. She pushed the blankets aside and swung her legs over the edge of the bed. Her feet touched plush carpet, and pain shot up her calves. She gritted her teeth and stood anyway. The room tilted, but she grabbed the bedpost and waited for her vision to steady. Someone had dressed her in soft cotton pajamas. Her uniform was gone. Her shoes were gone. Everything from last night was gone except the memories and the bruises. Elena walked to the window and looked out at the estate. The blizzard had passed. Everything was buried under 2 feet of fresh snow that sparkled in the morning sunlight. The grounds looked like a Christmas card, beautiful and perfect and completely unreal. She pressed her forehead against the cold glass and tried to think. She needed a plan. Needed to figure out what to say when Damian Moretti showed up asking questions. Needed to decide whether she was going to tell him the truth about Victor or make up some story that wouldn't get her killed. Because men like Damian Moretti didn't just help people. They owned people. And if he'd saved her life, he probably expected something in return. The door opened behind her. Elena turned and her breath caught in her throat. Damian Moretti stood in the doorway wearing dark slacks and a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows. He was younger than she'd expected. Mid-30s, maybe. Dark hair pushed back from his face, sharp cheekbones, eyes that looked like they could see straight through you. He was the kind of handsome that came with a warning label. "Miss Vale," he said. His voice was quiet, controlled. "You shouldn't be out of bed." "I'm fine." Elena's hands were shaking, so she crossed her arms to hide it. "Dr. Chen said you wanted to talk." "I did, but not while you're barely able to stand." Damien stepped into the room and closed the door behind him. "Sit down before you fall down." "I said I'm fine." "And I said sit down." His tone didn't change, but something in his expression did. Something that made Elena's survival instincts scream at her to obey. She walked back to the bed and sat on the edge. Damien stayed near the door, keeping distance between them, like he knew she was afraid and didn't want to make it worse. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Like I got hit by a truck." Elena flexed her bandaged fingers. "But alive. Dr. Chen says I have you to thank for that." "I found you. Dr. Chen did the hard part." Damien leaned against the wall and studied her face. "What do you remember from last night?" "All of it." "Then tell me." Elena looked down at her hands. "Does it matter? Victor's already gone. It matters to me." "Why?" She looked up at him. "Why do you care what happened to some random housekeeper?" Damien was quiet for a long moment, then he said, "Because you almost died on my property. Because one of my employees threw you into a blizzard and locked the door behind you. Because if I hadn't come home when I did, you'd be dead right now, and it would be my fault for not knowing what kind of man I had running my household." "It wouldn't be your fault. You weren't even here. That's exactly why it would be my fault." Damien pushed off the wall and walked closer. Not threatening, just closing the distance. "I built this organization. I hired Victor Hale. I trusted him with authority he clearly couldn't handle, and when he abused that authority, someone nearly died. So yes, Miss Vale, it matters to me." Elena stared at him. There was something in his voice that sounded almost like guilt, like he actually believed what he was saying, like this wasn't just about covering his ass or managing liability. "I broke an ornament," she said finally. "It was an accident, but Victor didn't care. He grabbed me and dragged me to the door. I tried to explain, but he wasn't listening. He just wanted me gone." She touched the bruise on her cheek. "He hit me first, then he threw me outside." Damien's jaw tightened. "Did he say anything before he did it?" "He said I was careless, that I destroyed your property, that I should have been more careful." Elena's throat tightened. "He said if I froze to death, it was my own fault." Jesus. Damien turned away and walked to the window. He stood there for a minute, his shoulders rigid, his hands shoved in his pockets. When he spoke again, his voice was very quiet. "I'm sorry that happened to you. It's not your fault." "Yes, it is." He looked back at her. "Victor worked for me. He represented me. When he hurt you, he did it with my authority whether I knew about it or not. That makes it my responsibility. He paused. I can't undo what happened, but I can make sure it doesn't happen again. By firing him. By making an example of him. Damien walked back toward the bed. The entire staff was there when I terminated him. They all saw what he did. They all heard me tell him that violence is not tolerated in this house. And they all know that if they ever do something like this, they'll suffer the same consequences. Elena studied his face. You're trying to scare them. I'm trying to protect them. There's a difference. Damien sat down in the chair Dr. Chen had vacated. Victor Hale spent 8 years abusing his authority. He made people miserable because he could, because he enjoyed it. I let that continue because I wasn't paying attention. That ends now. So what happens to me? The question hung in the air between them. Damien tilted his head slightly. What do you want to happen? He asked. I want my job back. You still have it. You were never officially fired. Victor said, Victor didn't have the authority to fire you. Only I do. Damien leaned forward with his elbows on his knees. But I'm not going to make you come back if you don't want to. After what happened, I'd understand if you wanted to work somewhere else. Somewhere safer. Elena laughed. It came out bitter. Safer, right. Because there are so many safe jobs for 19-year-old girls with no degree and no references. You have references. Dr. Chen spoke with the rest of the staff this morning. They all say you're hardworking and reliable. I'll write you a letter of recommendation myself if that's what you need. Why would you do that? Because you deserve it. Elena stared at him. This didn't make sense. None of this made sense. Damien Moretti was supposed to be a crime lord, a monster. The kind of man who built empires on blood and fear and broken bodies. He wasn't supposed to sit in her room apologizing for things that weren't his fault and offering to help her find a new job. I don't understand you, she said quietly. Most people don't. I mean it. I don't know what you want from me. Damien was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I don't want anything from you, Miss Vale. You're not in my debt. You don't owe me loyalty or gratitude or anything else. I pulled you out of the snow because leaving you there to die would have made me the same kind of monster as Victor. That's all. That's all. Yes. Elena wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that this was really as simple as one human being helping another. But she'd grown up in a world where nothing came free, where every kindness had a price tag attached, where powerful men didn't help girls like her unless they wanted something in return. I want to stay, she said finally. I need this job. The pay is good and it's close to my apartment, and I can't afford to start over somewhere else right now. She met his eyes. But if you're lying to me, if this is some kind of trap, I need to know now. Damien held her gaze. It's not a trap. You can stay as long as you want. And if you ever feel unsafe here, you can leave. No questions asked. No consequences. You have my word. Your word? Yes. And what's that worth? A small smile touched the corner of his mouth. In my world? Everything. He stood. Rest. Dr. Chen wants you in bed for at least another day. After that, we'll figure out when you're ready to return to work. He walked toward the door. Elena watched him go, and something in her chest twisted. A question she didn't want to ask, but couldn't keep inside. Mr. Moretti. He stopped with his hand on the doorknob and looked back. Why did you come looking for me? She asked. You didn't know who I was. You could have just assumed I left for the night. Damien was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I saw blood on the snow. I'm not in the habit of ignoring things like that. He opened the door. Get some rest, Miss Vale. Then he was gone. Elena sat on the bed for a long time after he left, trying to make sense of what had just happened, trying to reconcile the man who'd sat in her room apologizing with the reputation that preceded him. She couldn't do it. The pieces didn't fit. But maybe that was the point. Maybe Damien Moretti was more complicated than the stories suggested. Maybe he was human under all that power and control. Or maybe he was just very good at lying. Elena lay back down and pulled the blankets over herself. Her body ached. Her head throbbed. She was exhausted and confused and still a little bit terrified. But she was alive. That had to count for something. 2 days passed before Elena left the guest wing. Dr. Chen checked on her every few hours, monitoring her temperature and her vitals and making sure the frostbite was healing properly. The numbness in her fingers was fading. The bruise on her cheek had turned from purple to yellow. She could walk without her feet screaming in protest. She was ready to get out of this room. The staff brought her meals 3 times a day. Actual meals, not the leftovers they usually got in the staff dining area. Steak and potatoes. Fresh bread. Soup that tasted like someone's grandmother had made it. Elena ate everything they brought her because she was starving and because refusing seemed rude. Damien didn't come back. She told herself that was fine, told herself she didn't want to see him anyway. But every time the door opened, she looked up expecting to see him standing there. He never was. On the 3rd morning, Dr. Chen cleared her to return to work. He gave her a bottle of pain medication and strict instructions to take it easy for another week. No heavy lifting, no long shifts. If she felt dizzy or nauseous or experienced any numbness, she was to come find him immediately. Elena nodded and promised she'd be careful. Then she walked back to the staff quarters to change into her uniform. The other housekeepers looked at her like she'd returned from the dead. Maybe she had. They asked if she was okay, asked what happened, asked if it was true that Mr. Moretti had fired Victor Hale in front of everyone. Elena confirmed that part was true and didn't elaborate on the rest. She changed into her uniform and reported to the new house manager, a stern woman in her 50s named Margaret, who had been promoted from the kitchen staff. Margaret looked her up and down and said, "You're on light duty for the rest of the week. Dusting, organizing, nothing strenuous. Understood?" "Yes, ma'am." "Good. Start with the library on the 3rd floor. That'll keep you busy for a few hours." Elena grabbed her supplies and headed upstairs. The library was enormous and quiet, and exactly what she needed. She could lose herself in the work, could stop thinking about Damien Moretti and Victor Hale and how close she'd come to dying. She was dusting the shelves near the window when she heard footsteps behind her. "Miss Vale?" Elena turned and found Damien standing in the doorway. He wore a dark suit today. All business, all control. He looked like the man from the stories again. "Mr. Moretti," she said, "I didn't know you were home." "I'm not usually here during the day. I had a meeting in the city that got canceled." He walked into the library and closed the door behind him. "How are you feeling?" "Better. Dr. Chen cleared me to come back to work." "Good. That's good." Damien stopped a few feet away from her and shoved his hands in his pockets. "Listen, I need to talk to you about something." Elena's stomach dropped. Here it comes, she thought. Here's the price. "Victor Hale has been making threats," Damien said. "Nothing direct, nothing we can prove, but he's been talking to people in the city, people I do business with, telling them I'm unstable, that I overreacted, that he was just maintaining discipline and I fired him because I'm losing control. Is that a problem for you?" "It could be. My reputation is built on consistency, on people knowing exactly what I'll do in any given situation. If Victor convinces enough people that I'm unpredictable, it creates opportunities for my competitors." Damien's jaw tightened. "I'm handling it, but I wanted you to know in case he tries to contact you." "Why would he contact me?" Because you're the reason he got fired. Because humiliating him in front of the entire staff wasn't enough. He's angry, and he's looking for someone to blame. Damien took a step closer. "If he reaches out, if he shows up here or calls you or sends you a message, I need you to tell me immediately. Don't engage with him. Don't try to handle it yourself. Just come find me. Understood?" Elena nodded. "Understood. I've increased security around the estate. There are more guards, better cameras. Victor won't get within 100 yards of this property, but I need you to be careful when you leave here, when you go home, when you're out in the city." "You really think he'd come after me?" "I think Victor Hale is the kind of man who holds grudges, and right now you represent everything that went wrong for him." Damien's expression softened slightly. "I'm not trying to scare you. I just want you to be aware." "I'm aware." "Good." He turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing. I'm moving you to a different position." Elena's chest tightened. "What?" "You're off housekeeping duty. Starting Monday, you'll be working in my office. Administrative assistant. Filing, phones, scheduling. The pay is better, and the hours are more regular." Damien glanced back at her. "If you want it." "Why?" "Because you're smart, and you're careful, and I need someone I can trust. And because keeping you visible in the main house makes it harder for Victor to try anything." He met her eyes. Also because you shouldn't have to spend the rest of your life cleaning up after people who don't respect you. Elena stared at him. I don't know what to say. Say yes or say no. Either one is fine. She should say no. Should tell him she didn't want his charity or his protection or whatever this was. Should keep her head down and stay out of his world because getting close to men like Damien Moretti was how girls like her ended up dead. But the words that came out of her mouth were, yes, I'll take it. Damien nodded. Margaret will handle the transition. Report to my office Monday morning at 8. I'll have someone show you the ropes. Then he left. Elena stood in the library for 5 full minutes after he was gone, staring at the closed door and trying to figure out what the hell had just happened. She'd just been promoted. By Damien Moretti. To work in his private office. This was either the best thing that had ever happened to her or the worst mistake of her life. She had a feeling she was about to find out which. Monday morning arrived too fast. Elena stood outside Damien's office at 7:55 wearing the only business-appropriate outfit she owned, a black pencil skirt and white blouse she'd bought at a thrift store 3 years ago. Her hands were shaking. Her stomach was in knots. She'd barely slept. The office door opened and a woman in her 30s stepped out. She had dark hair pulled back in a severe bun and wore a pantsuit that probably cost more than Elena's rent. You must be Elena, the woman said. Her voice was clipped, professional. I'm Catherine. I've been Mr. Moretti's assistant for the past 4 years. I'll be training you this week. Nice to meet you. Follow me. Catherine turned and walked back into the office. Elena followed. The office was exactly what she'd expected. Dark wood, leather furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the estate, a massive desk covered in neat stacks of paper and 3 separate computer monitors. Damien wasn't there. Mr. Moretti is in the city today, Catherine said, reading Elena's mind. He'll be back this evening. In the meantime, I'll show you the systems. She sat down at the desk and gestured for Elena to pull up a chair. This is the scheduling software. Everything goes through here. Meetings, calls, appointments. Your job is to make sure nothing conflicts and that Mr. Moretti knows where he needs to be at all times. Elena pulled up a chair and tried to focus. Catherine walked her through the software, the filing system, the phone protocols. It was overwhelming. There were codes for different types of calls, color-coded files for different types of business, a system for marking which documents needed Damien's immediate attention versus which ones could wait. This seems complicated, Elena said after the first hour. It is. Mr. Moretti's time is valuable. One scheduling mistake can cost him millions. Catherine pulled up another screen. You'll get used to it. Just pay attention and don't make assumptions. If you're not sure about something, ask. Mr. Moretti would rather you interrupt him than make a mistake. They worked through lunch. Catherine ordered food from the kitchen and they ate at the desk while going over more procedures. By 3 o'clock, Elena's head was spinning. That's enough for today, Catherine said finally. Go home. Get some rest. We'll pick this up tomorrow. Elena gathered her things and stood. Thank you for being patient. Don't thank me yet. Tomorrow we start on the hard stuff. Catherine's expression softened slightly. But you're doing fine. Better than the last assistant Mr. Moretti tried to hire. What happened to them? They quit after 2 days, said the pressure was too much. Catherine started shutting down the computers. This job isn't easy, Elena. Mr. Moretti expects perfection. He doesn't tolerate mistakes or excuses. If you can't handle that, it's better to walk away now. I can handle it. We'll see. Elena left the office and walked back toward the staff quarters. Her feet hurt, her head hurt, but underneath the exhaustion was something else, something that felt almost like excitement. She'd spent 6 months cleaning this house, staying invisible, keeping her head down, and now she was working in Damien Moretti's private office, learning his business, seeing how his world actually operated. It was terrifying and thrilling and completely surreal. She was so lost in thought that she almost didn't notice the man standing beside her car in the parking area behind the estate. Elena stopped 10 feet away. Her heart kicked into overdrive. Victor Hale leaned against her driver's side door with his arms crossed. He looked worse than the last time she'd seen him. Unshaven, tired, his suit was wrinkled. "Hello, Elena," he said. She should run, should scream for security, should do anything except stand there staring at him, but her feet wouldn't move. "What are you doing here?" she managed. "I wanted to talk." Victor pushed off the car and took a step toward her. Elena took a step back. Relax. I'm not going to hurt you. You threw me into a blizzard. I made a mistake. I was angry and I overreacted. I came to apologize. You came to apologize. Elena's voice was flat. That's bullshit. It's the truth. Victor raised his hands in a placating gesture. Look, I know what I did was wrong. I know I hurt you, but Moretti destroyed my career over it. 8 years of loyal service, and he threw me out like garbage because I made one mistake. You tried to kill me. I didn't think... Victor's jaw clenched. I didn't think you'd actually freeze to death. I thought you'd walk to the main road and call someone. I thought you'd be fine. Well, I wasn't fine. I almost died. I know, and I'm sorry. Victor took another step forward. But you're alive now. You're fine. And Moretti used what happened to you as an excuse to destroy me. Don't you think that's excessive? Elena stared at him. Are you seriously asking me to feel sorry for you right now? I'm asking you to tell the truth. I'm asking you to admit that maybe Moretti overreacted, that maybe firing me and humiliating me in front of the entire staff was too much. Victor's voice dropped lower. He's using you, Elena. He's turned you into his project, his proof that he's a good man. But he's not. He's a criminal, a killer. And sooner or later you're going to realize that staying in his orbit is the most dangerous thing you've ever done. Get away from my car. Just think about it. That's all I'm asking. Think about who you're really working for. Victor stepped aside and gestured toward the driver's door. I'll leave you alone. But if you ever need help, if you ever want to get out of here, you know how to find me. He walked away before Elena could respond. She watched him disappear around the corner of the building, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. Then she ran. She ran back into the estate and up the stairs to Damien's office. Catherine was still there, packing her briefcase. Elena, what's wrong? Where's Mr. Moretti? I told you, he's in the city. He won't be back until... Call him, right now. Tell him Victor was here. Catherine's expression changed. What? Victor Hale was in the parking lot. He was waiting by my car. He wanted to talk. Elena's hands were shaking again. Mr. Moretti said to tell him if Victor contacted me, so I'm telling you, call him. Catherine pulled out her phone and dialed. 10 seconds later, she was talking rapidly into the receiver. Elena couldn't hear Damien's responses, but she could see Catherine's face getting tighter with every word. He'll be here in 20 minutes, Catherine said when she hung up. He wants you to wait in his office. Don't leave the building. Okay. Elena. Catherine walked over and put a hand on her shoulder. What did Victor say to you? He said he wanted to apologize. He said Mr. Moretti overreacted. He said I should think about who I'm really working for. Elena looked up at her. He's planning something, isn't he? Catherine's silence was answer enough. Elena sank down into the chair beside Damien's desk and tried to stop shaking. She'd known this wasn't over, had known Victor wouldn't just disappear, but having him show up here, on the estate grounds, beside her car, waiting for her, made it real in a way it hadn't been before. She was in danger. And the only person who could protect her was a man she barely knew and didn't entirely trust. Elena closed her eyes and tried to breathe. This was what happened when you got involved with people like Damien Moretti. This was the price. Not money or loyalty or gratitude, just fear. Constant, grinding fear that something bad was always one step behind you. The office door slammed open. Elena's eyes snapped open and she saw Damien striding into the room like a storm. His suit jacket was gone. His tie was loosened. He looked furious. Where? He demanded. Parking lot, Elena said. By my car. He's gone now. How long ago? 10 minutes? Maybe 15? Damien pulled out his phone and made a call. Marco. Victor Hale was on the property 15 minutes ago. Check the security footage, find out how he got in and how he got out, and put every guard on alert. If he comes back, I want him detained immediately. He hung up and turned to Elena. His expression softened fractionally when he saw her face. Are you hurt? He asked. No, he didn't touch me. He just wanted to talk. About what? You. He said you overreacted, that you destroyed his career over one mistake. He said, Elena's voice caught. He said you're using me, that I'm your project. You're proof that you're a good man. Damien was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Do you believe that? I don't know what I believe. Fair enough. Damien walked to the window and stared out at the grounds. Victor's right about one thing. I did destroy his career. I made sure everyone in this city knows what he did and why he was fired. I made sure he'll never work for another organization like mine again. He looked back at her. But I didn't do it to prove I'm a good man. I did it because letting him get away with what he did would have sent a message that I tolerate violence against my people. And I don't. So this is about your reputation. This is about survival, mine and yours and everyone else who works in this house. Damien turned away from the window. Victor violated the rules. He endangered someone under my protection. If I'd let that slide, every other ambitious sociopath in my organization would have taken it as permission to do the same thing. I can't run an empire on fear alone. I need loyalty, and loyalty only works if people trust that I'll protect them when they need it. Elena studied his face. You really believe that? Yes. Then why did he come here? If you destroyed him so completely, why risk coming back? Because he has nothing left to lose, which makes him dangerous. Damien pulled out his phone again and typed something quickly. I'm putting a guard on you, 24 hours. He'll follow you home, stay outside your apartment, make sure Victor doesn't try anything else. I don't need a babysitter. I'm not asking your permission. You can't just... Yes, I can. Damien's voice hardened. You work for me now. That means you're under my protection, and right now you're in danger. So you can either accept the guard or you can quit. Those are your options. Elena's hands clenched into fists. I hate this. I know. I hate that he's still controlling my life. Then help me stop him. Elena looked up. What? Victor came here for a reason. He wants something. Information, maybe. Or leverage. Or just the satisfaction of knowing he's still in your head. Damien leaned against the desk. If he contacts you again, I want you to engage with him. Find out what he wants. Lead him on. Give me time to figure out what he's planning. You want me to spy on him? I want you to protect yourself. Victor won't stop until he gets what he wants, or until I make him stop. And the only way I can make him stop permanently is if I know what he's planning. Damien met her eyes. I know this isn't fair. I know this isn't what you signed up for, but you're already in this, Elena. The question is whether you're going to help me end it, or whether you're going to spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder. Elena wanted to say no, wanted to walk away from this whole mess and find a nice, boring job somewhere safe. But she knew Damien was right. Victor wasn't going to leave her alone, and running away wouldn't change that. What do you need me to do? She asked quietly. Damien's expression shifted. Something like respect flickered across his face. If he contacts you again, answer. Talk to him. Find out what he wants. But don't agree to meet him anywhere without telling me first. And don't trust anything he says. I won't. Good. Damien straightened. The guard's name is Marcus. He'll be waiting for you outside when you're ready to go home. He's discreet. You won't even notice he's there most of the time. Okay. Damien started to turn away, then stopped. Elena. Yeah? Thank you for trusting me. I'm not sure I do yet. A small smile touched his mouth. Then thank you for pretending. He left the office. Elena sat there for a long time after he was gone, trying to figure out how her life had gotten so complicated so fast. 3 weeks ago, she'd been a nobody, a housekeeping girl trying to pay rent and save money for college. Now she was caught in the middle of some kind of power struggle between a crime lord and his vengeful ex-employee. And the worst part was that she was starting to care what happened to Damien Moretti. She shouldn't. He was dangerous and powerful and exactly the kind of man her mother had warned her about. But he'd also saved her life. Had fired Victor for hurting her, had given her a better job and protection and something that felt almost like respect. Elena stood and grabbed her things. Marcus was waiting outside, just like Damien said he would be. Tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of face that didn't give anything away. He nodded at her and followed her to her car at a discreet distance. She drove home with his black SUV trailing behind her the entire way. When she got to her apartment, Marcus parked across the street and settled in to wait. Elena went inside and locked the door and stood in her tiny kitchen, trying not to think about how her life had become the kind of story people told as a warning. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out and saw an unknown number. Her stomach dropped. The text said, "You're making a mistake trusting him. When you're ready to talk, call me. V." Elena stared at the message for a long moment. Then she screenshot it and sent it to the number Damien had given her. His response came back 30 seconds later. Good. Let him think you're considering it. I'll be in touch. Elena deleted both messages and threw her phone on the couch. Then she poured herself a glass of wine and tried not to think about how badly this was all going to end. Victor called 3 days later. Elena was in Damien's office filing contracts when her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and saw the same unknown number from before. Her heart kicked against her ribs, but she kept her face neutral. Catherine was sitting 10 feet away reviewing spreadsheets. Elena answered on the third ring. Hello? I knew you'd pick up eventually. Victor's voice sounded different over the phone. Smoother, almost friendly. How've you been, Elena? What do you want? Just to talk, that's all. She heard him take a breath. I know Moretti's got you working in his office now, playing assistant. Has he told you what he really does for a living? Elena walked toward the window so Catherine wouldn't hear. I'm not stupid. I know what kind of business he runs. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're in over your head. Victor's tone shifted slightly. He's using you, Elena, keeping you close so you'll feel grateful, so you'll be loyal when he needs something from you. He gave me a job, that's all. He gave you a target on your back. The people Moretti does business with don't care about housekeepers. They care about leverage, and right now you're his biggest weakness. Elena's hand tightened on the phone. If you're trying to scare me, I'm trying to warn you, there's a difference. Victor paused. Meet me tonight. Let me explain what's really going on, what Moretti isn't telling you. Why would I do that? Because you're smart enough to know that working for a man like Damien Moretti comes with consequences, and I can help you avoid them. His voice dropped lower. 8 o'clock. There's a diner on 5th in Amsterdam. Public place. Lots of witnesses. I just want to talk. Elena closed her eyes. This was what Damien wanted. Victor reaching out, making contact, giving them information they could use, but agreeing to meet him felt like stepping off a cliff. I'll think about it, she said. Don't think too long. The clock's ticking. Victor hung up. Elena stared at her phone for 10 seconds before she walked over to Catherine's desk. I need to talk to Mr. Moretti. Catherine looked up. He's in a meeting until 3. It's important. Something in Elena's expression made Catherine pick up her phone. She made a quick call, spoke quietly for 30 seconds, then hung up. He'll see you now. Conference room, 2nd floor. Elena took the stairs 2 at a time. The conference room door was closed, but she could hear voices inside. She knocked once, and the voices stopped. Come in, Damien said. Elena pushed open the door and found Damien sitting at the head of a long table with 3 men in expensive suits. They all looked at her with varying degrees of annoyance at being interrupted. I'm sorry, Elena said. I need to talk to you. It's about Victor. Damien's expression didn't change, but his eyes sharpened. He looked at the 3 men. We're done here. Marco will see you out. The men gathered their papers and filed out without a word. When the door closed behind them, Damien leaned back in his chair. What happened? He called. He wants to meet tonight. 8 o'clock, public diner. Elena crossed her arms. He said he wants to warn me about you, that I'm in over my head. And what did you say? That I'd think about it. Damien was quiet for a moment. Then he stood and walked to the window. He's escalating, faster than I expected. What does that mean? It means he's desperate, which makes this dangerous. Damien turned back to face her. You don't have to do this. I can find another way to figure out what he's planning. What other way? I have people, resources. He's not going to talk to your people. He wants to talk to me. Elena met his eyes. You said I was already in this. You were right, so let me help end it. Damien studied her face for a long moment. If you do this, you follow my rules. Marcus goes with you. He stays close enough to intervene if Victor tries anything. And you wear a wire. I need to hear everything he says. A wire? Yes. You want me to record him. I want evidence. If Victor's planning something illegal, I need proof. Something I can use to shut him down permanently. Damien walked closer. But if you're not comfortable with that, we stop now. I won't force you to do something that scares you. Elena thought about the text message, about Victor waiting by her car, about the way his hand had felt around her wrist the night he'd thrown her into the storm. "I'll do it," she said. "You're sure?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." Something shifted in Damien's expression. Respect, maybe, or concern. "Meet me in my office at 7. I'll have Marcus set up the equipment." "Okay." Elena turned to leave, but Damien's voice stopped her. "Elena." She looked back. "If anything goes wrong," he said quietly, "if you feel unsafe for even a second, you walk away. Marcus will handle the rest. Your safety is more important than whatever Victor has to say." "Why do you care so much?" The question hung between them. Damien's jaw tightened. "Because you almost died once already because of my failure to see what Victor really was," he said finally. "I'm not letting that happen again." Elena wanted to say something, wanted to ask what that meant, but the look in his eyes made the words stick in her throat. She just nodded and left. Wahant. At 7 o'clock, Elena stood in Damien's office while Marcus taped a small microphone to her ribs under her shirt. The device was smaller than she'd expected, no bigger than a button. Marcus showed her how to activate it with a small switch hidden near the battery pack. "It'll pick up everything within 10 feet, Marcus said. His voice was calm, professional. "Try to keep Victor talking. The more he says, the better." "What if he searches me?" "He won't. He thinks you're just a scared girl who wants answers. He won't expect you to be working with us." Marcus finished taping the wire and stepped back. "But if he does find it, don't panic. Just tell him Moretti forced you to wear it. Make yourself the victim." Elena pulled her shirt down and tried to breathe normally. The wire felt foreign against her skin, like a lie made physical. Damien was sitting at his desk watching them. He hadn't said a word since she'd arrived. "Ready?" Marcus asked. "No." "That's normal." Marcus grabbed his jacket from the back of a chair. "I'll be 3 tables away. You'll see me, but Victor won't know I'm with you. If he tries to move you to another location, you refuse. If he puts his hands on you, you say the word and I'll intervene. Clear?" "Clear." Marcus left. Elena stood there for a moment trying to steady herself. Her hands were shaking. She shoved them in her pockets. "You don't have to do this," Damien said again. "You already said that." "I'm saying it again." Elena looked at him. He was leaning back in his chair with his arms crossed, but his shoulders were tense. His jaw was tight. He looked like a man barely holding himself together. "Why does this bother you so much?" she asked. "Because I'm sending you into a situation I can't fully control. Because Victor Hale is unstable and angry, and I don't know what he's capable of anymore." Damien stood and walked around the desk. "Because if something happens to you, it's on me. Nothing's going to happen. You don't know that. Neither do you." They stared at each other. The office felt smaller suddenly, the air heavier. "If this goes wrong, Damien started. "It won't. If it does," he continued, "I need you to know that I never meant for any of this to happen. I never meant to drag you into my world. I just wanted to keep you safe." Elena's chest tightened. "I know." "Do you?" "Yes." Damien held her gaze for another moment. Then he reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a small canister, pepper spray. "Take this," he said. "Keep it in your pocket. If Marcus can't get to you in time, use it." Elena took the canister. It was cold and heavy in her palm. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet, Ma." Damien's voice was rough. "Just come back in one piece." Elena left before she could say something stupid, something that would make this harder than it already was. Marcus was waiting by the car. They drove to the diner in silence. The streets were crowded with evening traffic. People heading home from work, tourists taking pictures, normal people living normal lives. Elena wondered what that felt like. The diner was exactly what Victor had described. Bright lights, red vinyl booths, the smell of coffee and frying meat. Marcus parked across the street and Elena walked in alone. Victor was already there. He sat in a corner booth with his back to the wall and a cup of coffee in front of him. He'd cleaned himself up since the last time she'd seen him. Fresh shave, pressed shirt. He looked almost like the man who'd managed the Moretti estate for 8 years. Almost. Elena slid into the booth across from him and Victor smiled. "You came. You asked me to." I wasn't sure you would. Figured Moretti might forbid it. Victor's eyes flicked over her face. He doesn't know you're here, does he? He knows. And he let you come anyway. Interesting. Victor leaned back and studied her. You look different, more confident. Working for him agrees with you. What do you want, Victor? Right to business. I can respect that. He pushed his coffee cup aside. I want to help you. Help me do what? Get out. Before it's too late. Victor's expression turned serious. You think you're safe working for Damian Moretti. You think because he saved your life and gave you a promotion that he's some kind of hero. But he's not, Elena. He's a monster. And the longer you stay in his orbit, the more danger you're in. Elena kept her face neutral. From who? From everyone. Moretti has enemies, lots of them, rival families, federal agents, people who'd love to see him taken down. Victor leaned forward. And when they come for him, they'll come for everyone close to him, including you. Is that a threat? It's a warning. There's a difference. Victor's voice dropped lower. I know you don't trust me. I know I hurt you, but I'm trying to make that right. I'm trying to give you a way out before you're in too deep. Elena tilted her head. And what do you get out of this? Peace of mind. Knowing I didn't destroy your life along with mine. Victor reached across the table like he might touch her hand, but stopped when she pulled back. I made mistakes, Elena. I know that. But Moretti made mistakes too. Bigger ones. He just hides them better. What kind of mistakes? Victor glanced around the diner like he was checking for listeners. Elena's heart rate spiked. The wire under her shirt suddenly felt like it was burning against her skin. 3 years ago, Victor said quietly, there was a situation. A business deal gone wrong. Moretti needed to send a message to his competitors, so he had a family killed. Not just the father who'd crossed him, the whole family, wife, 2 kids. He burned their house down while they were sleeping. Elena's stomach turned to ice. That's not true. It is. I was there. I saw the aftermath. The fire department ruled it an accident, but everyone in the organization knew the truth. Damian Moretti doesn't just eliminate threats. He obliterates them. Victor's eyes were hard now. That's who you're working for. That's who you're trusting with your life. A man who murders children. Elena couldn't breathe. The diner was too hot, too loud. The wire under her shirt felt like it was tightening around her ribs. You're lying, she said. I wish I was. Victor pulled out his phone and scrolled through something. Then he turned the screen toward her. This is the police report. See the address? That's the family. See the date? 3 years ago, January 15th. Elena looked at the screen. It was a scanned document, official looking. The address was in Brooklyn. The names were redacted, but the cause of death was listed as smoke inhalation from a residential fire. This doesn't prove anything, Elena said. No, but it's a start. Victor put his phone away. I have more. Documents, recordings, evidence that connects Moretti to at least a dozen murders over the past 5 years. And I'm offering to share it with you, so you can make an informed decision about whether you want to keep working for him. Why would you do that? Because you deserve the truth. Because Moretti's been lying to you since the day he pulled you out of that snow. Victor's voice softened. Because maybe if you know what he really is, you'll walk away before he destroys you too. Elena stood up. Her legs felt shaky, but she kept her voice steady. I need to think about this. Take your time, but not too much. The walls are closing in on Moretti. When they fall, I don't want you underneath them. Victor slid a business card across the table. That's my number. When you're ready to see the rest of the evidence, call me. Elena took the card and walked out of the diner. She made it halfway to Marcus's car before her knees gave out. She caught herself on a lamppost and tried to breathe. Marcus was there in seconds. What happened? Drive. Just drive. He got her into the car and pulled into traffic. Elena sat in the passenger seat with her arms wrapped around herself and stared out the window. Her mind was screaming. Victor's words kept repeating on a loop. A family killed, 2 kids burned alive. That's who you're working for. Elena! Marcus's voice cut through the noise. Talk to me. What did he say? He said Damian killed a family 3 years ago, burned their house down with them inside. Her voice sounded distant to her own ears. He said he has proof. Marcus's hands tightened on the steering wheel. And you believed him? I don't know what I believe. Victor Hale is a liar. He's trying to get in your head. Then why did he have a police report? Why did he know the address and the date and... Elena's voice cracked. I need to talk to Damien. That's where we're going. They drove back to the estate in silence. When they pulled up to the main entrance, Damien was standing on the front steps like he'd been waiting. He took one look at Elena's face and his expression went dark. Inside, he said. Now. They went to his office. Marcus closed the door behind them and Damien gestured for Elena to sit. She stayed standing. Tell me what happened, Damien said. Elena pulled the wire off and threw it on his desk. Did you kill a family 3 years ago? The question landed like a bomb. Damien went very still. What? Victor said you had a family killed. Parents and 2 kids. Burned their house down to send a message to your competitors. Elena's hands were shaking. Is it true? Damien looked at Marcus. What exactly did Victor say? Marcus repeated the conversation word for word. When he finished, Damien walked to the window and stood there for a long moment with his back to them. The fire was real, he said finally. January 15th, 3 years ago, Brooklyn. A man named Thomas Castellano and his family died in that fire. Elena felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. So it's true. No. Damien turned around. His face was carved from stone. Thomas Castellano worked for Sergio Barone. He was an accountant. He'd been skimming money from Barone's operations and hiding it in offshore accounts. When Barone found out, he ordered the hit. The fire was meant to look like an accident so the feds wouldn't investigate. But Victor said you... Victor was working for me at the time. He was my house manager. He had no access to my actual operations, no knowledge of what I did or didn't order. Damien's voice was hard. But he heard rumors. Everyone did. The fire made news. And when someone like Barone commits an atrocity, everyone assumes I was involved because we operate in the same world. So you didn't order it? No. I had nothing to do with it. Damien walked closer. But I knew about it afterward. I knew Barone had killed that family, and I didn't do anything to stop him or expose him, because doing so would have started a war I couldn't win at the time. Elena stared at him. You let him get away with it. Yes. You let him murder children, and you did nothing. I chose my battles. Just like you're choosing yours right now by working for me instead of running as far from this city as you can. Damien's eyes were cold. I'm not a good man, Elena. I've never claimed to be. I've done terrible things to survive in this world. But I didn't kill that family, and Victor knows it. Then why did he say you did? Because he's building a case against me, collecting half-truths and rumors and pieces of evidence he can twist into something that looks damning. He wants you to doubt me, to question everything I've told you, because the moment you stop trusting me, you become vulnerable, and vulnerable people make mistakes. Elena's legs finally gave out. She sank into the chair and put her head in her hands. I don't know what's real anymore. That's what he wants. Confusion, fear, doubt. Damien crouched down in front of her chair so they were eye level. Look at me. Elena lifted her head. I saved your life because leaving you to die would have made me complicit in Victor's cruelty. I gave you a job because you're smart and capable, and I need people I can trust. I fired Victor because he violated the rules that keep this organization from collapsing into chaos. Damien's voice was steady. Certain. But I'm not innocent. I've hurt people. I've ordered things done that would horrify you if you knew the details. I exist in a world where violence is currency and mercy is weakness. That's who I am. And if you can't live with that, then walk away right now and I'll make sure you're safe. Ma-sung. Elena looked at him. Really looked at him. At the hard lines of his face, the scars on his knuckles, the eyes that had seen too much and survived anyway. I don't want to walk away, she said quietly. Then don't. But understand what you're choosing. Understand that working for me means accepting that I'm not the hero of this story. I'm just the man trying to keep everyone from killing each other. And sometimes I fail. Elena nodded slowly. Okay. Okay? I believe you. About the family, about Victor lying. She took a shaky breath. But I need to know something. If you had ordered that fire, if you had killed those children, would you tell me the truth? Damien held her gaze. Probably not, because telling you would put you in danger. The less you know about my actual operations, the safer you are. So I just have to trust you. Yes, that's a lot to ask. I know. Damien stood and held out his hand. But it's all I have to offer. Elena looked at his hand for a long moment. Then she took it and let him pull her to her feet. Victor's going to keep pushing, she said. He's going to show me more evidence, more reasons to doubt you. I know. What do I do? You keep playing along. You tell him you're considering his offer. You let him think he's winning. Damien's expression hardened. And while he's focused on turning you against me, I'll figure out what he's really planning. What if he's not planning anything? What if he's just trying to help me? Men like Victor Hale don't help anyone but themselves. He wants something, and once I know what it is, I'll end this. Damien looked at Marcus. Double the guard rotation. I want eyes on Elena 24 hours, and I want surveillance on Victor, where he's staying, who he's talking to, what he's doing with his time, everything. Yes, sir. Marcus left. Elena and Damien stood there in the office. The silence stretched out between them. Thank you, Elena said finally, for telling me the truth, even the ugly parts. You deserved it. Most people wouldn't have. I'm not most people. Damien walked back to his desk. Go home. Get some rest. We'll figure out the next move tomorrow. Elena nodded and headed for the door, but something made her stop and look back. Damien? He looked up. That family that died, the one Barone killed. Do you think about them? His jaw tightened. Every day. Good. Elena left before she could see his reaction. What waits? 4 days later, Victor sent her a package. It arrived at the estate addressed to Elena Vale with no return address. Security checked it for explosives before bringing it to Damien's office. Inside was a manila envelope containing photographs, documents, and a burner phone. Elena spread the contents across Damien's desk while he watched from the window. The photographs showed men in expensive suits meeting in back rooms and parking garages. The documents were financial records with highlighted sections showing money transfers, bank account numbers, shell companies, offshore holdings. This is your operation, Elena said quietly. Parts of it, enough to be damaging if it got into the wrong hands. Damien walked over and picked up one of the documents. Victor must have been copying files for months before I fired him, building his insurance policy. Why give it to me? Because he wants you to understand the scope of what I do, how much money moves through my organizations, how many people are involved. Damien set the document down. He's trying to overwhelm you, make you see me as this vast criminal enterprise instead of just a man. Elena picked up the burner phone. Should I turn it on? Yes. She powered it up and a single text message appeared. Now you know what he really is. Call me when you're ready to walk away. I can protect you. V. Elena showed Damien the message. His expression didn't change. He's escalating faster than I expected, Damien said. He's desperate. For what? That's what we need to figure out. Damien took the phone from her and examined it. This device is clean, no tracking, no spyware. He wants you to use it to contact him without me knowing. What do I do? You call him, tonight. You tell him you're scared and confused and you need more time. You keep him talking until I can trace where he is. Elena nodded, but something about the photographs on the desk made her stomach twist. She picked up one showing Damien meeting with a man she didn't recognize in what looked like a warehouse. Who is this? She asked. Damien glanced at the photo. Sergio Barone. Elena's blood went cold. The man who killed that family. Yes. Why are you meeting with him? Because like I said, I have to choose my battles. Barone controls half the port operations in this city. I need access to those ports for my legitimate businesses. So we maintain a working relationship even though I'd prefer to see him dead. Damien took the photo from her. Welcome to my world, Elena. It's not pretty. Elena sat down in the chair and stared at the documents spread across the desk. This was real. All of it. The money, the violence, the moral compromises. This wasn't some abstract concept anymore. It was paper and ink and photographs proving that Damien Moretti was exactly what everyone said he was. A criminal. I need air, she said. Elena, I just need a minute, please.
Damien nodded. Elena walked out of the office and down the hall to the bathroom. She locked herself in a stall and tried to breathe. Her hands were shaking. Her chest was tight. She felt like she was drowning again. This was too much, too fast, too complicated. She was 19 years old. She should be in college worrying about exams and student loans, not standing in a crime lord's office looking at evidence of money laundering and murder. She should run, should pack her things and leave the city and never look back. But where would she go? And what would Victor do if she tried to leave? He'd already proven he knew where she lived, knew where she worked, knew everything about her. She was trapped. Elena splashed cold water on her face and stared at herself in the mirror. Her reflection looked pale, scared, young. When had she become this person? When had her life turned into something she didn't recognize? Christmas Eve. That was when. The moment Victor had thrown her into the storm, everything had changed. There was no going back to who she'd been before. That version of Elena was dead. This version had to be stronger. Elena dried her face and walked back to Damien's office. He was standing at the window again, his phone pressed to his ear. He looked up when she entered and ended his call. "Better?" he asked.
No, but I'll survive.
Elena picked up the burner phone. "When do you want me to call him?" "Tonight, 9 o'clock. I'll have my tech team ready to trace the call." Damien walked over to her. "Are you sure you're okay to do this? Does it matter?" "Yes." Elena looked up at him. "Why?" "Because I don't want you to do something that breaks you, even if it helps me." Damien's voice was quiet. "You're not a soldier, Elena. You're not trained for this. And I'm asking you to walk into a situation that could go very wrong very fast." "Then train me." "What? You said I'm not a soldier, so train me. Teach me how to handle this, how to protect myself, how to survive in your world." Elena's hands clenched into fists. "Because I'm not running and I'm not hiding and I'm not going to let Victor Hale destroy my life. So either help me fight back or get out of my way." Something shifted in Damien's expression, something that looked almost like pride. "All right," he said, "we'll start tomorrow. Self-defense training, situational awareness, how to read people, how to spot danger before it spots you." He held her gaze. "But tonight, you make that call. And you remember that no matter what Victor says, no matter how convincing he sounds, he's not your friend. He's the enemy. And enemies don't help you. They use you." "I know." "Do you?" "Yes." Damien nodded. "Then let's end this." At 9 o'clock, Elena sat in Damien's office with the burner phone in her hand and Damien's entire tech team monitoring the call from the next room. Marcus stood by the door. Damien sat across from her, his expression unreadable. Elena dialed Victor's number. He answered on the second ring. "I was starting to think you wouldn't call." "I almost didn't. But you did. That's what matters." Victor's voice was warm, encouraging. "Have you looked through everything I sent you?" "Yes." And I don't know what to think. It's a lot." "I know it is. That's why I want to help you process it. Meet me tomorrow. Let me walk you through everything, show you the full picture." Victor paused. "There's more, Elena. Things I couldn't put in that package. Things you need to see." "What kind of things?" "Proof that Damien Moretti is not who you think he is. Proof that you're in danger as long as you stay close to him." Victor's tone shifted slightly. "I know a place. Quiet. Safe. We can talk without anyone interrupting." Elena's chest tightened. This was it. The move Damien had been waiting for. Victor was trying to isolate her. "Where?" she asked. "There's a warehouse in Red Hook, industrial area, abandoned. No one goes there anymore." Victor gave her an address. "Tomorrow night, 10 o'clock. Come alone." "I don't think—" "If you bring anyone, I'll know. And I'll disappear. And you'll never see the evidence I have. Evidence that could keep you alive." His voice hardened. "Trust me one more time, Elena. That's all I'm asking." The line went dead. Elena set the phone down and looked at Damien. "He wants me to meet him at a warehouse tomorrow night, alone." "It's a trap," Marcus said from the door. "Obviously," Damien replied. His voice was cold. "But it's also our best chance to figure out what he's really planning." He looked at Elena. "You're not going alone. I'll have a team positioned around that warehouse before you even arrive. The moment you walk in, we'll have eyes on you. And if Victor tries anything, we shut it down. What if he's not planning anything? What if he really does have more evidence? Then we'll see it, and we'll deal with it. Damien stood. But I don't think that's what this is about. I think Victor has allied himself with someone. Someone who wants to use you to get to me. Who? I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. Damien walked to the window and stared out at the dark grounds. Get some rest tonight. Tomorrow is going to be difficult.
Elena stood to leave, but Damien's voice stopped her.
Elena, she turned. If anything feels wrong tomorrow night, if Victor says or does anything that scares you, if you want to abort, you say the word and my team pulls you out immediately. No questions, no judgment. Understood? Understood. Elena left the office and walked back to her apartment with Marcus trailing behind her in his SUV. When she got inside, she locked the door and stood in the middle of her tiny living room, trying to slow her racing heart. Tomorrow night she was walking into a trap. She knew it. Damien knew it. Victor probably knew she knew, but they were all going anyway because this was the only way to end it. Elena walked to her bedroom and opened the drawer where she'd hidden the pepper spray Damien had given her. She held it in her palm and tried to imagine using it. Tried to imagine what she would do if Marcus and Damien's team couldn't reach her in time. She didn't sleep that night. The warehouse in Red Hook was exactly as bleak as Elena had imagined. Crumbling brick walls, broken windows, graffiti covering every surface. It sat at the edge of the water where the industrial district bled into abandoned lots and rusted shipping containers. Elena pulled up at 9:55 and turned off her engine. Marcus and Damien's team were already in position. She couldn't see them, but she knew they were there. Watching, waiting. She got out of the car and walked toward the warehouse entrance. The door was propped open with a cinder block. Inside was dark except for a single battery-powered lantern sitting in the center of the empty space. Victor stood beside the lantern. "You came," he said. He sounded relieved. "You said you had evidence." "I do." Victor gestured to a folder sitting on an overturned crate. "It's all there. Everything you need to know about who Damien Moretti really is." Elena walked closer and picked up the folder. Inside were more documents, more photographs. But these were different from the package. These showed Damien meeting with federal agents, handing over files, shaking hands with men in FBI windbreakers. Her blood turned to ice. "What is this?" she whispered. "Proof that Damien Moretti is working with the feds. He's been an informant for 3 years, selling out his competitors to the FBI in exchange for immunity." Victor's voice was hard now, triumphant. "He's a traitor, Elena, and everyone he's betrayed is coming for him, including the man standing behind you." Elena spun around. A man stepped out of the shadows at the back of the warehouse. Tall, expensive suit, cold eyes. She recognized him from the photographs in Victor's original package. Sergio Barone. "Hello, Miss Vale," Barone said. His voice was smooth, cultured. "I've been looking forward to meeting the girl who almost brought down my business partner." Elena's hand went to the pepper spray in her pocket, but Barone moved faster. He pulled a gun from inside his jacket and aimed it at her chest. "Don't," he said quietly. "I'd prefer not to shoot you, but I will if you make me." Elena's heart was trying to break through her ribs. She looked at Victor. "What is this?" "This is me taking back what Damien stole from me. My reputation, my career, my life." Victor walked closer. "Barone and I made a deal. I give him floor plans of the Moretti estate, security protocols, guard rotations, everything he needs to breach Damien's defenses. And in exchange, I get to watch Damien Moretti pay for what he did to me." "You're insane. I'm practical. Damien made an enemy he couldn't afford, and now that enemy is going to destroy everything he's built, starting with you." Victor pulled out his phone and typed something. "In about 30 seconds, Barone's men are going to storm that warehouse and kill everyone from Damien's security team who's currently watching this building. Then we're going to take you to the estate and use you to draw Damien into the open. And when he comes for you, because he will come for you, Barone's going to put a bullet in his head." Elena's mind was screaming. She needed to warn Marcus, needed to warn Damien, but she couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't do anything except stare at the gun in Barone's hand. Gunfire erupted outside the warehouse, not the clean crack of controlled shots, the chaotic roar of automatic weapons tearing through metal and concrete. Elena heard shouting, screaming, the sound of bodies hitting the ground. "No," she whispered. Barone smiled. "Yes." The warehouse door burst open and 3 men in tactical gear stormed inside. They weren't Damien's people. Elena could tell by the way they moved, by the way they looked at her like she was cargo instead of a person. One of them grabbed her arm. Elena tried to pull away, but he twisted her wrist until pain shot up to her shoulder. The pepper spray fell from her pocket and clattered across the concrete floor. "Get her in the van," Barone said. "We move on the estate in 20 minutes." They dragged Elena toward the door. She fought every step, kicked and screamed, and tried to break free. But there were too many of them, and they were too strong, and she was just one girl who'd been stupid enough to think she could survive in this world. The last thing she saw before they threw her in the van was Victor standing in the warehouse doorway watching her with something that might have been regret. Then the doors slammed shut, and everything went dark. The van smelled like oil and rust, and something darker Elena didn't want to identify. She was thrown against the metal wall as they took a corner too fast. Her shoulder screamed in protest. Zip ties cut into her wrists behind her back. Someone had put a hood over her head that smelled like sweat and fear from whoever had worn it before her. She counted the turns. Left, right, straight for what felt like miles, right again. Her mind was racing, trying to build a map, trying to figure out where they were taking her, but the panic kept drowning out the logic. The gunfire outside the warehouse kept replaying in her head. Marcus's team, Damien's people, dead or dying because she'd walked into a trap she should have seen coming. The van stopped. Doors opened. Hands grabbed her arms and hauled her out onto pavement. The night air was cold against her skin. She heard voices speaking quickly in Italian. Barone's men. They dragged her forward and she stumbled, her legs not cooperating. Someone laughed. They shoved her through a doorway and down a flight of stairs. Her feet caught on the steps and she went down hard. Pain exploded in her knees. No one helped her up. They just grabbed her arms and kept dragging until they reached the bottom. The hood came off. Elena blinked against the sudden light. She was in a basement, concrete walls, single bulb hanging from the ceiling, the kind of room where bad things happened and no one heard you scream. Barone stood in front of her with his arms crossed. Victor was beside him looking pale and sick. "Comfortable?" Barone asked. Elena spit blood at his feet. "Go to hell." Barone smiled. "Brave, I like that." He nodded at one of his men. "Put her in the chair." They forced her into a metal folding chair and tied her ankles to the legs. The zip ties on her wrists were replaced with rope that cut deeper. Elena tested the bonds and felt them dig into her skin. No give, no way out. Barone pulled up another chair and sat down directly in front of her, close enough that she could see the gray in his hair, the lines around his eyes. He was older than she'd expected, late 50s maybe, the kind of man who'd done terrible things for so long they didn't register anymore. "Let's talk about Damien Moretti," Barone said. "I don't know anything. You work in his office, you process his files, you answer his phones." Barone tilted his head. "You know plenty. I file paperwork, that's all. Paperwork is everything in our world, Miss Vale. Money trails, communication records, meeting schedules." Barone leaned forward. "For instance, I'd very much like to know where Damien keeps his offshore account information. The real accounts, not the ones he shows his investors." Elena stared at him. "I don't know what you're talking about." "No?" Barone pulled out his phone and showed her a photograph. It was from inside Damien's office, the filing cabinets along the back wall. "These cabinets? What's in them?" "Files." "What kind of files?" "Contracts, invoices, legal documents. And the locked drawer at the bottom of the cabinet on the right." "What's in there?" Elena's stomach dropped. She'd seen that drawer, had noticed the different lock, the way Damien always made sure it was secured before he left the office at night, but she'd never opened it, never looked inside. "I don't know," she said. Barone's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered behind his eyes. He nodded at one of his men. The man stepped forward and hit Elena across the face with the back of his hand. Her head snapped to the side and pain exploded across her cheek. Blood filled her mouth. "Try again," Barone said calmly. "I don't know." Elena's voice was thick. I've never opened it. But you know it exists. Everyone knows it exists. That doesn't mean I know what's inside. Barone studied her face for a long moment. Then he sighed and stood up. This is going to be more difficult than I thought. He looked at Victor. You said she was close to him. She is, Victor said quickly. She works in his office every day. He trusts her. Trust isn't the same as access. Barone walked to the stairs. We'll try a different approach. Bring her upstairs in 10 minutes. Make sure she understands what's at stake. He left. Victor and the two guards remained. Elena looked at Victor. You're really doing this? I don't have a choice. You always have a choice. Not anymore. Victor crouched down in front of her chair. I tried to help you. I tried to warn you. You didn't listen. You're helping a man who murders families, who burns children alive. That's who you're working with now. Victor flinched. Barone is exactly what Damien said he was. A monster. Elena leaned forward as far as the ropes would let her. And you're helping him kill more people because you got fired for being a sadistic piece of garbage. Victor's hand shot out and grabbed her throat. Not hard enough to choke her, just hard enough to make breathing difficult. His face was inches from hers. I was loyal, he hissed. I gave Damien Moretti 8 years of my life. I protected his home. I managed his staff. I kept his secrets. And he threw me away like trash because you broke a vase. I almost died. And I lost everything. Victor's grip tightened. So yes, Elena, I'm helping Sergio Barone destroy Damien Moretti. Because Damien deserves to lose everything the same way I did. And you're going to help us do it whether you want to or not. He let go. Elena gasped and coughed, her throat burning. Take her upstairs, Victor said to the guards. Barone wants her ready. They cut the ropes on her ankles and hauled her to her feet. Her legs were numb from being tied. She stumbled, and one of the guards caught her by the arm. They dragged her up the stairs and through a hallway that smelled like mold and decay. The house above the basement was abandoned. Peeling wallpaper, broken furniture, windows covered with plywood. A squatter's house. The kind of place no one would look for someone. The kind of place where screams wouldn't matter. They brought her to what used to be a living room. Barone was standing by the window talking quietly on his phone. He hung up when he saw her. Good, you're here. He gestured to the guards. Put her on the couch. Make sure she can see the laptop. They shoved Elena down onto a stained couch. One of them set up a laptop on a crate in front of her and turned the screen to face her. The screen showed multiple camera feeds, security cameras. She recognized the angles immediately. The Moretti estate. Do you see this? Barone asked. These are live feeds from inside Damien's mansion. Cameras your friend Victor installed during his 8 years of loyal service. Cameras Damien doesn't know about. He tapped the screen. This is the garage. This is the kitchen. This is the main foyer. And this one here is Damien's private wing, his bedroom. Elena's chest tightened. What are you doing? I'm showing you what happens next. Barone pulled up another window on the laptop. This one showed a map of the estate with red dots scattered across it. Each of these dots represents one of my men. They've been in position for the past hour, waiting for my signal. He looked at Elena. In 30 minutes, they're going to breach the estate. They're going to kill every guard, every staff member who resists. And they're going to drag Damien Moretti out of his bedroom and put him on his knees in front of me. Ma said, he'll kill you first. Will he? Barone smiled. Damien's best men are dead in Red Hook. His security protocols are compromised. His surveillance systems have been hacked. And he has no idea any of this is happening because he's too busy tearing apart the city looking for you. Elena's blood ran cold. What? Did you think we didn't plan for this? The moment you were taken, Damien mobilized everything he has, every soldier, every informant, every resource. Barone's smile widened. He's out there right now hunting for you while my men surround his home. By the time he realizes what's happening, it'll be too late. You're using me as bait. I'm using you as motivation. There's a difference. Barone crouched down so they were eye level. Here's what's going to happen. In 25 minutes, my men breach the estate. They take control. They secure the property. And then I'm going to call Damien and tell him that if he wants to see you alive, he needs to come home, alone, unarmed, and surrender himself. He won't do it. He will.
Because despite everything he is, despite the empire he's built on blood and fear, Damien Moretti is still human, and humans have weaknesses. Barone stood. You're his weakness, Miss Vale, and I'm going to use you to destroy him. Elena pulled against the ropes. They held. You're insane. I'm efficient. There's a difference. Barone walked back to the window. Victor tells me you're smart, that you're capable, that Damien promoted you because he saw potential. So I'm going to give you a choice. When Damien arrives and I have him on his knees, you can watch me kill him. Or you can help me convince him to cooperate, to sign over his assets, to transfer control of his organization, to go quietly. Why would I do that? Because if you cooperate, I'll let you live. I'll give you money, set you up somewhere far from New York. You can start over, build a new life. Barone turned from the window. Or you can refuse and watch me torture him to death before I kill you too. Your choice. Elena stared at him, at the cold certainty in his eyes, at the way he talked about murder like it was a business transaction. I won't help you, she said. We'll see. Barone checked his watch. 20 minutes until the breach. Get comfortable, Miss Vale. It's going to be a long night. Set. Damien stood in the middle of the Red Hook warehouse surrounded by bodies and tried to control the rage threatening to rip him apart from the inside. Marcus was dead. 3 other men from his security team were dead. 2 more were critical and might not make it to the hospital. They'd been ambushed, outgunned, outmaneuvered by someone who knew exactly where they'd be and exactly how they'd respond. Victor Hale. It had to be. No one else had that kind of access to Damien's protocols, that kind of knowledge about how his teams operated. But Victor wasn't working alone. The weapons used in the ambush were military grade. The tactics were professional. This wasn't some revenge fantasy by a disgruntled employee. This was a coordinated assault by someone with serious resources. Damien pulled out his phone and called Rodriguez, his head of security. Status, Damien said. We've locked down the estate. Double guards on every entrance. Surveillance at maximum. No one's getting in. Rodriguez paused. But, sir, if they took Miss Vale, they took her to draw me out. I know. Damien walked to the warehouse entrance and looked out at the industrial wasteland. Keep the estate secure. I'm bringing in reinforcements from our allied families. No one sleeps until we find her. Yes, sir. Damien hung up and called another number. This one rang 4 times before a woman answered. It's late, she said. Her voice was rough from sleep. I need a favor, Angela. Of course you do. That's the only time you call. Angela Rossi was the head of one of New York's oldest crime families. She and Damien had a complicated relationship built on mutual respect and carefully maintained boundaries. What do you need? Intelligence. Someone just hit my team in Red Hook. Military precision, professional equipment. They took someone important to me. How important? Important enough that I'm calling you at midnight asking for help. Angela was quiet for a moment. I'll make some calls, see what I can find out. But Damien, if this is what I think it is, if this is Barone making a move, you need to be very careful. Why Barone? Because he's been making noise for the past month, talking about how you're getting soft, how you've been cooperating with the feds, how the old families need to remind you who really runs this city. Angela's voice hardened. If he's coming for you, he's not going to stop with one girl. He's going to try to take everything. Damien's jaw clenched. Let him try. I'm serious. Barone plays for keeps. And if he's allied himself with Victor Hale, he knows things about your operation that could be devastating. Angela paused. How much did Victor have access to? Enough. Damien closed his eyes. Enough to do serious damage. Then you need to move fast, shore up your defenses, call in every favor, because if Barone breaches your estate, he's not leaving until you're dead. I'll handle it. Will you? Because from where I'm standing, it sounds like you're about to make a very emotional decision. And emotion is how you lose wars. Angela's voice softened slightly. Who is she, Damien? This girl they took. Someone who didn't deserve to get dragged into my world. None of them do, but they end up there anyway. Angela sighed. I'll get you the intelligence, but promise me you'll think this through before you do something stupid. I can't promise that. Then at least try not to die. I'd hate to lose my favorite chess partner. She hung up.
Damien stood there for another minute trying to think strategically, trying to be the cold, calculating crime lord everyone expected him to be. But all he could see was Elena's face, the way she'd looked at him in his office when he'd told her the truth about his world, the way she'd decided to stay anyway. She'd trusted him, and he'd sent her into a trap. Damien's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. "Hello, Damien." Sergio Baroni's voice was smooth and pleased. "I believe I have something that belongs to you." Every muscle in Damien's body went rigid. Where is she? Safe, for now. Whether she stays that way depends entirely on you. If you've hurt her, you'll what? Storm my position with an army you don't have? You're down to half your security force. Your protocols are compromised. Your estate is vulnerable. You have nothing to bargain with, Damien. So let's skip the threats and move to business. Damien forced himself to breathe. To think. What do you want? Everything. Your accounts, your assets, your organization. All of it transferred to me with Elena Vale as collateral. You sign the papers, I let her go. You refuse, I kill her slowly while you listen over the phone. You're insane. I'm practical. You built an empire. I'm taking it. That's how this world works. Barone paused. You have 30 minutes to get to your estate. Come alone, unarmed. Walk through the front door with your hands up. My men will be waiting. If you're late, or if you bring reinforcements, Elena dies. Understand? You're already at the estate. My men are. I'm somewhere else with your pretty assistant. But don't worry, Damien. If you cooperate, you'll see her one last time before I put a bullet in your head. Barone's voice hardened. 30 minutes. Don't be late. The line went dead. Damien stared at his phone. Then he called Rodriguez back. Sir, the estate is compromised. Barone's men are already inside. How many guards do we have on site? 12, plus household staff. Evacuate the staff. Everyone who isn't armed gets out now. The guards hold position but do not engage unless fired upon. I need time to get there. Sir, if Barone's men are already in position, then we change the game. Damien was already moving toward his car. I'm calling in the entire organization, every soldier from every operation. I want them converging on the estate within the hour. And I want Angela Rossi's people as backup. Tell her I'm cashing in every favor she owes me. What are you planning? War. Damien got in his car and started the engine. If Barone wants my empire, he's going to have to burn it down first, and I'm going to make him pay for every inch of ground. He hung up and drove toward the estate with his foot pressed to the floor. The city blurred past. Traffic lights, empty streets, the Manhattan skyline glittering in the distance like a promise he'd never get to keep. Elena was in danger because of him, because he'd underestimated Victor's hatred, because he'd miscalculated Barone's ambition, because he'd allowed himself to care about someone in a world where caring was the fastest way to lose everything. Damien's phone buzzed again. This time it was a video message. He pulled over and opened it. The video showed Elena tied to a chair in some kind of basement. Her face was bruised, blood on her lip. But her eyes were defiant, angry, alive. Victor stepped into frame. Hello, Damien. Just wanted you to see what happens to people who trust you. Elena's been very brave, very loyal, but loyalty doesn't mean much when you're on your knees waiting to die, does it? The video cut off. Damien sat in his car and felt something break inside him, something that had been holding him together for years. The careful control, the strategic thinking, the ability to separate emotion from business. It was gone. All that was left was rage. He called Rodriguez one more time. Change of plans, Damien said. His voice was cold, flat. When my men arrive at the estate, they don't wait for orders. They breach immediately, room by room, floor by floor. Anyone who resists gets put down. No prisoners, no mercy. Barone wants a war. We're giving him one. Sir, Elena's is somewhere else. Barone wouldn't risk keeping her at the estate. He's too smart for that. Damien pulled back into traffic. We take the estate. We secure it. And then we make Barone tell us where she is. Whatever it takes. Understood. Damien hung up and drove faster. The speedometer climbed past 90, past 100. He didn't care about traffic laws or consequences or anything except getting to Elena before Barone decided she wasn't useful anymore. 30 minutes. That's what Barone had given him. It would take at least 20 to reach the estate from Red Hook.
He had 10 minutes to figure out how to save Elena and destroy the man who'd taken her. It wasn't enough time, but it was all he had. Back in the abandoned house, Elena watched the laptop screen and felt hope dying in her chest. The red dots on the map were moving. Barone's men were entering the Moretti estate. She could see them on the security feeds. Armed soldiers in tactical gear moving through hallways she'd walked 1,000 times. The foyer where she'd hung garland. The library where she'd dusted shelves. Damien's office where she'd learned to file documents and answer phones. They were destroying everything. Beautiful, isn't it? Barone stood beside the couch with his arms crossed, like watching dominoes fall. Elena didn't answer, couldn't answer. The zip ties on her wrists were cutting off circulation to her hands. Her face throbbed where the guard had hit her. Her throat still hurt from where Victor had grabbed her. But none of that mattered compared to what was happening on the screen. Damien's home was being invaded. His people were being killed, and it was her fault. She'd walked into Victor's trap. She'd trusted that Damien could protect her. She'd been wrong. 5 minutes until your boyfriend arrives, Barone said. He checked his watch. Assuming he's stupid enough to come alone like I told him to. He's not stupid. No, but he's compromised. And compromised men make mistakes. Barone crouched down in front of her. Tell me something, Elena. What is it about you that made Damien Moretti lose his legendary control? You're pretty enough, but he's had beautiful women before. You're smart, but he employs geniuses. So what makes you special? I'm not special. You must be. Otherwise, he wouldn't be racing toward his death right now. Barone tilted his head. Or maybe that's the point. Maybe you're not special at all. Maybe you're just the first person in years who looked at Damien Moretti and saw a man instead of a monster. And maybe that was enough to make him forget what he really is. Elena met his eyes. What is he really? A killer. Just like me. Just like everyone who survives in this world. Barone stood. The difference is that I've never pretended to be anything else. Damien built his empire on fear and loyalty and the illusion that he's somehow better than the rest of us. But he's not. He's just better at lying. You're wrong. Am I? Barone gestured to the laptop. Look at the screen, Elena. That's his home being torn apart. Those are his people dying. And where is he? Not defending them, not saving them. He's racing to save you, one girl, because in the end, Damien Moretti is as weak as any other man who's ever fallen in love. The words hit Elena like a fist. He's not. We're not. Please. I've been watching him for weeks. The way he looks at you. The way he changed his entire routine to keep you close. The way he reacts when your name is mentioned. Barone's smile was cold. Damien Moretti is in love with you, which means he's vulnerable. And vulnerability is how you die in our world. Elena's throat was tight. She wanted to argue, wanted to tell Barone he was wrong, but she couldn't because somewhere deep down she'd known it for weeks. The way Damien's expression softened when he talked to her, the way he'd positioned guards around her apartment, the way he'd reacted when Victor had thrown her into the storm. It wasn't just about protecting an employee. It was personal, and now it was going to get him killed. You're a monster, Elena whispered. Yes, but I'm an honest monster. That counts for something. Barone's phone buzzed. He checked it and smiled. Your prince is almost here. Time to move. He gestured to the guards. They hauled Elena to her feet and dragged her toward the door. Victor followed behind them, looking pale and sick. Where are we going? Elena asked. To the estate, to watch Damien Moretti kneel. Barone opened the door. And then to watch him die. They shoved her into a different van. This one was newer, cleaner, the kind of vehicle that wouldn't attract attention. Elena was thrown into the back and strapped to a bench seat. Barone got in beside her. Victor took the front passenger seat. The van started moving. Elena's mind raced. She needed to escape, needed to warn Damien, needed to do something other than sit here and wait to be used as bait. But her hands were tied. Her feet were tied. There were 2 armed guards sitting across from her, and Barone was close enough to shoot her if she tried anything. She was trapped. The van drove for 20 minutes. Elena counted the turns again, trying to build a map, trying to figure out where they were. But her thoughts kept scattering, keep coming back to Damien walking into Barone's trap because of her. The van stopped. We're here,
Barone said. He looked at Elena. Time to see if your boyfriend loves you enough to die for you. They pulled her out of the van and Elena saw the Moretti estate rising in front of them. Every window was lit. Every door was open. Barone's men were everywhere, standing guard, patrolling the grounds, moving through the house like they owned it. They dragged Elena through the front entrance and into the foyer. The place where she'd hung garland. The place where she'd broken the ornament. The place where everything had started. Now it was a war zone. Furniture was overturned. Glass was shattered across the marble floor. Bullet holes pocked the walls. And in the center of it all, kneeling with his hands zip-tied behind his back, was Damien Moretti. His face was bloody. His suit was torn. But his eyes were clear, focused. And when he saw Elena, something dangerous flickered across his expression. "Hello, Damien," Barone said. "Thank you for coming." Damien didn't look at him, didn't acknowledge him. He just stared at Elena like he was trying to memorize her face. "I told you to come alone," Barone continued. "Did you?" "Yes." "No reinforcements? No backup plan? No dramatic last-minute rescue?" "Just me." Damien's voice was steady. "Let her go. This is between us." "No, this is between me and your empire. She's just leverage." Barone walked over to Damien and pressed a gun against his temple. "But since you're here, let's discuss terms. Sign over your assets, transfer control, and I'll make this quick. Refuse, and I'll make you watch while my men take turns with your pretty assistant before I kill you both." Damien's jaw clenched. "You're dead." Bold words from a man on his knees. Barone looked at Victor. "Bring her closer. I want him to see her face when I start breaking her fingers." Victor grabbed Elena and dragged her forward. She fought, but he was stronger. He shoved her down onto her knees beside Damien. Their eyes met. "I'm sorry," Elena whispered. "Don't be," Damien said. His voice was so quiet only she could hear. "This isn't over." "It looks pretty over to me." "Then you're not paying attention." Damien's eyes flicked to the windows, the doors, the shadows moving in the hallway behind Barone's men. 3 seconds. "What?" "When I move, you run. Don't look back. Don't wait for me. Just run." "I'm not leaving you." The windows exploded. Glass erupted inward as armed men repelled through from the outside. The front doors burst open and more soldiers poured through. Gunfire erupted from every direction. Barone's men scattered, trying to find cover, trying to return fire. Damien rolled to his feet despite the zip ties and charged toward Victor. He caught him with his shoulder, and they both went down hard. Elena scrambled backward as bullets tore through the air above her head. One of Barone's guards grabbed her arm. She twisted and brought her knee up into his groin. He went down and she ran. Her hands were still tied, but her legs worked. She sprinted toward the stairs as the foyer descended into chaos. Someone grabbed her from behind. Elena screamed and thrashed. Then she heard Rodriguez's voice in her ear. "It's me. You're safe. Come on." He cut the zip ties and pulled her toward the west wing. They ran through hallways Elena had cleaned 100 times. Past rooms she'd dusted, past windows she'd washed. Everything was different now, darker, more dangerous. Rodriguez got her to a safe room hidden behind a bookcase in the library. He shoved her inside and locked the door. "Stay here," he ordered. "Don't come out until someone you trust tells you it's clear." "What about Damien?" "He's handling it." He was on his knees. He was exactly where he wanted to be. Rodriguez's expression was grim. "This was the plan, Elena. Let Barone think he'd won. Draw his men into the estate, and then crush them when they weren't expecting it." Elena stared at him. "He used himself as bait. He used both of you as bait, and it worked." Rodriguez checked his weapon. "Now stay here and stay quiet." He left. Elena sank down against the wall of the safe room and tried to control her shaking. Outside she could hear gunfire, shouting, the sounds of men fighting and dying. Damien had planned this, had walked into Barone's trap knowing it was a trap, had let himself be captured so Barone would bring all his forces to one location where they could be eliminated. It was brilliant. It was insane. It was the most reckless thing she'd ever heard. The gunfire started to fade. Elena pressed her ear against the door and listened. Footsteps in the hallway, voices giving orders, the sound of bodies being dragged across marble floors. Then silence. Elena waited. Minutes felt like hours. Her heart was trying to break through her ribs. She wanted to open the door, wanted to see what had happened. But Rodriguez's order echoed in her head. Don't come out until someone you trust tells you it's clear. A knock on the door. 3 times. Pause. 2 times. Elena recognized the pattern. Damien had taught it to her weeks ago. The signal that meant friendly, safe, open. She unlocked the door. Damien stood in the hallway, covered in blood that probably wasn't his. His face was hard. His eyes were cold. He looked like the man from the stories again. The crime lord, the killer, the monster. Then he saw Elena and his expression cracked. Are you hurt? He asked. No. Are you? Not in any way that matters. Damien stepped into the safe room and pulled her against his chest. His arms wrapped around her so tight she could barely breathe. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I should never have let you go to that warehouse. I should have. It's not your fault. Yes, it is. Everything that happened tonight is my fault. Damien pulled back and looked at her face, at the bruise blooming across her cheek, at the split lip. His jaw clenched. Did Barone do this? One of his men. Is he still alive? I don't know. Then I'll make sure he's not. Damien's voice was cold, final. Come on. It's over. You're safe now. They walked out of the library and back toward the foyer. Elena saw bodies, Barone's men, some dead, some wounded, some with their hands zip-tied behind their backs, kneeling against the wall. Rodriguez was overseeing the cleanup. He looked up when they approached. Status? Damien asked. 15 hostiles down, 8 in custody, 3 escaped, including Barone. Rodriguez's expression was grim. Victor Hale is dead. He tried to run when the shooting started, caught a stray bullet in the back. Elena felt nothing. No relief. No satisfaction. Just emptiness. And Barone? Damien asked. Gone. He slipped out during the chaos. We're tracking him, but he had extraction planned. Rodriguez paused. Sir, this isn't over. He'll regroup. Come at us again. Let him try. Damien's voice was hard. Call Angela Rossi. Tell her I'm calling in that favor. I want every family in this city looking for Sergio Barone. I want a bounty on his head high enough that his own men will turn on him, and I want it done tonight. Yes, sir. Rodriguez left. Damien turned back to Elena. I need to finish this, he said quietly. Can you wait for me? In the guest wing? Dr. Chen is already there. He'll check you over, make sure you're okay. What are you going to do? What I should have done years ago. Damien's eyes were cold. I'm going to make sure Sergio Barone understands that coming after my people was the last mistake he'll ever make. He walked away before Elena could respond. She watched him cross the foyer, barking orders at his men, organizing, planning, moving with the precision of someone who'd done this 1,000 times before. This was Damien Moretti, not the man who'd sat in a room apologizing for things that weren't his fault, not the man who'd given her a promotion and taught her to be brave. This was the crime lord, the emperor of a brutal organization, the man who'd built an empire on blood. And Elena realized with startling clarity that she was in love with him. Both versions. The man and the monster. The gentle voice and the cold eyes. All of it. Which meant she was in deeper than she'd ever imagined. And there was no way out except forward. Through whatever came next. Through the war. Through the violence. Through everything. Elena walked toward the guest wing on shaking legs. Dr. Chen was waiting just like Damien said. He cleaned her wounds and checked her for serious injuries and gave her something for the pain. Then he left her alone in the same room where she'd woken up weeks ago after nearly freezing to death. She lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling and tried not to think about how many people had died tonight. How many more would die before this was over? How many she might have to watch Damien kill to keep them both alive? Outside the window, dawn was breaking over the city. The estate grounds were covered in snow and blood, and somewhere in the mansion below, Damien Moretti was planning the death of every man who'd threatened the woman he loved. Elena closed her eyes and tried to breathe. The war had just begun, and she was standing at the center of it. Elena didn't sleep. She lay in the guest wing bed and watched dawn turn the snow outside from blue to pink to gold. The estate was quiet now. No gunfire, no shouting,
Just the muffled sounds of cleanup crews moving through the mansion, removing bodies and evidence and anything that might connect Damien Moretti to the massacre that had happened in his home.
Dr. Chen came back around 7 to check her vitals. He didn't say much, just confirmed she was healing properly and left her with another bottle of pain medication. Elena didn't take any. She needed to stay sharp, needed to be ready for whatever came next, because this wasn't over. Baroni was still out there, still dangerous, still coming for them. Around 8 o'clock, Catherine appeared in the doorway. She looked exhausted, like she'd been up all night coordinating things that shouldn't exist on any official record. "Mr. Moretti wants to see you," Catherine said. "His office, whenever you're ready." "I'm ready now." Catherine nodded and left. Elena got up and looked at herself in the bathroom mirror. The bruise on her face had darkened overnight, purple spreading into yellow and green around the edges. Her split lip was swollen. She looked like someone who'd been through a war. She supposed she had. Elena pulled on clean clothes someone had left folded on the dresser and walked down to Damien's office. The door was closed. She knocked twice. "Come in," Damien said. She pushed open the door and found him standing at the window with his back to her. He'd changed into fresh clothes, but she could see tension in his shoulders. In the rigid set of his spine, he looked like a man holding himself together through sheer force of will. "You wanted to see me?" Elena said. Damien turned. His face was unreadable. "How are you feeling?" "Like I got kidnapped and dragged through hell. You?" "About the same." He walked to his desk and gestured to the chair across from it. "Sit, please." Elena sat. Damien didn't. He stayed standing behind his desk with his hands braced on the surface, like he needed the physical barrier between them. "I owe you an explanation," he said quietly. "About last night. About what happened." "Rodriguez told me. You used us both as bait." "Yes." "And you knew Barone would take it. I knew he'd think he'd won. I knew he'd bring his forces to my home where I could control the battlefield. I knew he'd underestimate how fast I could mobilize reinforcements." Damien's jaw tightened. "What I didn't know was whether I could get you out alive." "But you tried anyway." "I didn't have a choice. Barone was coming for me one way or another. This way I could choose the time and place. This way I had a chance of ending it." He looked up at her. "But I'm not going to lie to you, Elena. There was a moment last night when I thought I'd lost you. When I thought Barone had killed you before my men could breach the house. And in that moment, I would have burned this entire city to the ground to make him pay." Elena's chest tightened. "Barone said you were in love with me." Damien went very still. "What?" "He said that's why you were vulnerable. That's why he could use me against you, because you'd fallen in love with a girl you barely knew." Elena held his gaze. Was he right? The silence stretched out between them. Damien looked at her like he was trying to decide whether to tell the truth or retreat behind the walls he'd spent years building. He chose the truth. "Yes," he said quietly. "He was right." Elena's breath caught. "Since when?" "Since you looked at me in that hospital bed and asked why I cared about some random housekeeper. Since you decided to stay even after seeing what my world really is. Since you walked into that warehouse knowing it was a trap because you trusted me to keep you safe." Damien's voice roughened. "I didn't plan it. I didn't want it. But it happened anyway. And now you're the most dangerous weakness I have." "That's not romantic. It's honest, which is more than most people in my position can offer." Damien walked around the desk and crouched down in front of her chair so they were eye level. "I'm in love with you, Elena, and that means you're never going to be truly safe as long as you're with me. Because men like Barone will always see you as leverage, as a way to hurt me. And I can't protect you from that no matter how many guards I post or how many precautions I take." Elena stared at him, at the hard lines of his face softened by something that looked almost like fear. "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying you have the choice to make. You can stay, be part of this world, accept the danger that comes with being close to me, or you can walk away. I'll set you up somewhere safe, give you enough money to start over, make sure no one ever bothers you again." His eyes were dark, serious. "But if you stay, I need you to understand what you're choosing. I need you to know that this will never be normal, that there will always be threats, always violence, always the possibility that someone will try to use you against me. And if I stay,
Elena said quietly. What happens to us? I don't know. I've never done this before.
Never let anyone close enough to matter. Damien reached up and touched her bruised cheek gently. But I want to try. If you'll let me. Elena closed her eyes and felt the weight of the decision pressing down on her. She could leave. Could take Damien's money and disappear and build a quiet life somewhere far from New York. Could be safe. Or she could stay. Could accept the danger and the violence and the constant threat of men like Barone. Could choose a life that would probably destroy her eventually. But she'd also be choosing Damien, the man who'd saved her life, who'd fired Victor for hurting her, who'd walked into a trap last night knowing he might die because the alternative was letting her die alone. She opened her eyes and looked at him. I'm staying, she said. Something shifted in Damien's expression, relief mixed with concern. Are you sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Elena leaned forward and kissed him, soft, brief, a promise and a question wrapped together. I'm terrified. I don't know if I'm strong enough for this, but I know I don't want to walk away. Not from you, not from this, not when I'm finally starting to understand who I really am. Damien pulled her closer and kissed her properly, deep and desperate and full of all the things he couldn't say out loud. When they broke apart, his forehead rested against hers. I'll protect you, he said, however I can, whatever it takes. I know, but Damien? Elena pulled back slightly. I need to be more than just someone you protect. I need to be someone who can protect herself, someone who can survive in your world without you holding my hand. What do you mean? I mean, teach me everything. How to fight, how to read people, how to spot danger, how to make decisions that keep me alive. She met his eyes. You said I wasn't a soldier, so make me one. Because I'm not going to be a weakness you have to worry about. I'm going to be a partner, or I'm going to die trying. Damien stared at her for a long moment. Then a small smile touched his mouth. You're terrifying when you're determined. You know that? Good. Maybe that'll keep your enemies from thinking I'm easy prey. Nothing about you is easy. Damien stood and pulled her to her feet. All right, I'll train you, but first we need to finish this with Barone. Because as long as he's out there, neither of us is safe. How do we find him? We don't. We make him come to us. Damien walked back to his desk and pulled up something on his computer. I've put word out through every channel I have. A bounty on Barone's head. $5 million to whoever brings him in alive. $10 million if they can prove he ordered the attack on my estate. You're turning his own people against him. I'm giving them permission to do what they already want to do. Barone's been losing power for years. He's erratic, violent, unreliable. The only reason the other families tolerated him was because he controlled the ports. But now Angela Rossi has offered to split that territory with me if I eliminate him. Which means Barone has nothing left except enemies. How long until someone turns on him? Hours, maybe less. Damien closed the laptop. And when they do, I'll be there to finish this. Elena nodded. What do you need me to do? Stay here, stay safe. Let me handle this. No? Damien's expression hardened. Elena, you said you'd teach me to survive in your world. This is part of it. I need to see how it ends. I need to understand what justice looks like when the law doesn't apply. She crossed her arms. I'm coming with you, or I'm following you. Your choice. Damien looked at her like he was trying to decide whether to argue or give in. Finally, he sighed. You stay behind me. You do exactly what I say. And if shooting starts, you get down and stay down. Clear? Clear. Good. Because if something happens to you, I'll burn the world down. And I don't particularly want to do that. Elena smiled despite everything. That's almost romantic. I'm working on it. Damien grabbed his coat and a gun from the desk drawer. Come on, let's go end this. The call came 4 hours later. Damien was in a meeting with Rodriguez and Angela Rossi when his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and his expression went cold. It's done, he said. They found him. Elena was sitting in the corner of the conference room reading through security protocols. She looked up. Where? Warehouse in Queens. One of his own lieutenants turned on him, shot him in the leg, and called me. Damien stood. Angela, I need your people to secure the perimeter. No one in or out until this is finished. Done. Angela made a quick call and gave orders in rapid Italian. When she hung up, she looked at Damien. You're sure you want to do this yourself? Yes. Barone's dangerous, even wounded. He won't surrender quietly. I'm counting on it. Damien's voice was flat, final. He looked at Rodriguez. Get the car. We're moving now. They drove to Queens in 2 vehicles. Damien, Elena, and Rodriguez in the lead SUV. Angela and 4 of her soldiers in the second. The warehouse was in an industrial area that looked abandoned even during the day. Rusted metal, broken windows. The kind of place where bad things happen and no one asks questions. Angela's people had already established a perimeter by the time they arrived. No sirens, no police, just armed men in expensive suits making sure no one interfered. Damien got out of the SUV and checked his weapon. Elena followed him. Rodriguez tried to stop her, but Damien shook his head. She's coming, Damien said. It's her choice. They walked toward the warehouse entrance. One of Barone's former lieutenants was waiting outside. He was young, maybe 30. He looked nervous but determined. He's inside, the man said. 2nd floor. I tied him to a chair. He's not going anywhere. How many others? Damien asked. Just him. Everyone else scattered when they heard about the bounty. Good. Damien handed the man a card. Call that number tomorrow. There'll be a payment waiting for you, and a job offer if you want it. The man's eyes widened. Thank you, Mr. Moretti. Don't thank me yet. If Barone's friends come looking for revenge, you're the first person they'll target, so I suggest you take the money and disappear for a while. The man nodded and walked away quickly. Damien turned to Elena. Last chance to wait in the car, he said. Not happening. Then stay behind me. And whatever you see in there, remember that this is what justice looks like in my world. It's not clean, it's not fair, but it's necessary. Elena nodded. They walked into the warehouse. The inside was dark and cold and smelled like oil and decay. Damien moved through it like he'd memorized the layout. Up a set of metal stairs to the 2nd floor. Down a hallway lined with empty offices. To a room at the end with the door hanging open. Sergio Barone sat in the middle of the room tied to a metal chair. His leg was wrapped in makeshift bandages soaked through with blood. His face was pale, but his eyes were sharp, angry, defiant. Hello, Damien, Barone said. His voice was weak but steady. Come to gloat? Come to finish this. Damien stepped into the room. Elena and Rodriguez followed. You made a mistake, Sergio. You came after my people. You attacked my home. You tried to use someone I care about as leverage, and now you're going to pay for it. By what? Shooting me? Barone laughed. It sounded wet, painful. Go ahead. Make me a martyr. Give the other families a reason to unite against you. See how long your empire lasts. I'm not going to shoot you. Damien pulled out his phone and held it up. I'm going to show you something first. Evidence, recordings, financial transfers, everything Victor Hale gave me before he died. Barone's expression changed. Victor didn't give me anything? You're right, he didn't. Because Victor was too busy trying to destroy me to realize I was the only thing keeping you relevant. Damien pulled up files on his phone. For the past 3 years, you've been skimming money from every operation you touch. $50 million total. Hidden in offshore accounts. Accounts that I now control because Victor was kind enough to document everything before you killed him. Elena watched Barone's face go from pale to gray. You're lying. Am I? Angela, tell him. Angela stepped forward. The council met this morning. We reviewed the evidence Damien provided. Bank statements, wire transfers, shell companies in your name. You've been stealing from every family in this city, including your own, which means you violated the oldest rule we have. You betrayed the trust that keeps us from tearing each other apart. Barone stared at her. The council voted unanimously. You're stripped of all protection, all assets, all authority. As of this morning, you don't exist. You're nothing, less than nothing. Angela's voice was cold. And Damien has permission to do whatever he wants with you. Silence filled the room. Barone looked at Damien with something close to fear in his eyes. What are you going to do? Barone asked. I'm going to give you to the feds. Damien put his phone away. Rodriguez, make the call. Rodriguez pulled out a phone and dialed. 30 seconds later, he nodded. They're on their way. ETA 10 minutes. What? Barone's voice rose. You can't. Federal prison. They'll put me away for life. Oscar. Yes, they will. For murder, conspiracy, racketeering, money laundering, attempted murder. The list goes on. Damien crouched down in front of Barone's chair. You tried to make me choose between my empire and Elena. You thought I'd sacrifice everything to save her, but you were wrong. I didn't have to choose, because I'm smarter than you, stronger than you, and I have something you never did. What? Loyalty. Real loyalty. Not fear, not greed, actual trust from people who believe I'll protect them when it matters. Damien stood. You could have had that. You could have built something that lasted, but instead you built an empire on fear and betrayal and stolen money, and now it's all gone. Everything you worked for, everything you killed for, gone. Barone's face twisted. You're making a mistake. The feds will come for you next. They'll use me to get to you. They'll try. But unlike you, I've been preparing for that possibility for years. I have lawyers, accountants, legitimate businesses that can withstand scrutiny, and most importantly, I have friends in places you never thought to look. Damien walked toward the door. Enjoy prison, Sergio. Try not to die too quickly. I want you to have time to think about how badly you miscalculated. They left the room. Barone started shouting behind them, but Damien didn't look back. They walked down the stairs and out of the warehouse. Police sirens were already audible in the distance. Elena waited until they were in the SUV before she spoke. That's it? She asked. You're just handing him to the police? Yes. Why? You could have killed him. No one would have stopped you. Because killing him would have made him a martyr like he said, would have given the other families an excuse to question my judgment. This way he lives but loses everything, his reputation, his freedom, his legacy. Damien looked at her. And everyone in our world will remember that betraying me doesn't end in a quick death. It ends in federal prison, which is worse. Elena thought about that. About the cold calculation behind Damien's decision. About how he'd turn Barone's own people against him. About how he'd use the feds to eliminate a threat without getting his hands dirty. You're scary when you're strategic, she said finally. I know, but it keeps us alive. Damien reached over and took her hand. It's over, Elena. Barone's done. Victor's dead. The threat is gone. You're safe. Elena wanted to believe him, wanted to think that was true, but she'd learned enough about Damien's world to know that safe was a temporary condition, that there would always be another threat, another enemy, another crisis. But for now, sitting in the SUV with Damien's hand warm around hers, she let herself pretend it was over, just for a moment. 3 months passed. Winter released its grip on the city slowly. Snow turned to slush. Ice melted from the sidewalks. The Moretti estate transformed from a fortress back into something almost resembling a home. Elena spent those months learning everything Damien promised to teach her. Self-defense training with Rodriguez 4 days a week. Weapons handling. Situational awareness. How to read body language. How to spot lies. How to make decisions under pressure. She also kept working in Damien's office, learning the legitimate side of his business, the real estate holdings, the shipping companies, the restaurants and clubs, and all the enterprises that existed above board. Catherine had retired after the attack, said she'd had enough of near-death experiences and wanted to spend time with her grandchildren. Elena took over her position officially, personal assistant to Damien Moretti, which meant she saw everything, knew everything, became part of the machinery that kept his empire running. The staff treated her differently now. Not quite with fear, but with respect, with the understanding that she wasn't just some girl Damien had saved. She was someone who'd survived a war and come out stronger. Margaret, the new house manager, was efficient and kind and never mentioned Victor Hale. The old guard rotation was replaced with new people who understood that violence against staff meant immediate termination. The estate felt safer, more stable, but it was also different, harder. The innocence Elena had arrived with months ago was gone, burned away by everything she'd seen and survived. She was different too, stronger, more confident, more willing to make difficult decisions. The girl who'd broken a vase and been thrown into a blizzard felt like someone from another life. Elena stood in Damien's office late one evening in March, filing the last of the quarterly reports. Damien was at his desk reviewing contracts. They worked in comfortable silence.
The kind that came from spending months in close proximity learning each other's rhythms. How's the Castellano file coming? Damien asked without looking up. Elena froze. What? The Castellano file, the one I asked you to pull this morning. She set down the paper she was holding. You've never mentioned that name before. I know. Damien looked up. His expression was careful. I'm mentioning it now. Elena walked over to his desk and sat down in the chair across from him. Is this about the family that died in the fire 3 years ago? Yes. Why are you bringing it up? Damien leaned back in his chair. Because you need to know what happened, the full story. Not the version Victor told you, not the version Barone used to manipulate you. The truth. Elena's chest tightened. Okay, tell me. Thomas Castellano was Barone's accountant. He was also an informant for the FBI. He'd been feeding them information for 2 years. Financial records, communication logs, evidence of money laundering,